Say yes. Okay. We'll call this meeting to order of September 24th, 2013 of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors. Could we have the roll call, please?
Supervisor Bennett. Here. Supervisor Parks. Here. Supervisor Long. Here. Supervisor Zaragoza.
Here.
And Supervisor Foy.
Here. And for our moment of inspiration, I'd like to welcome Nick Esser, who's to give us a moment of inspiration. Nick is president of the Kiwanis Club of Simi Valley. Simi Valley Club was founded in '65. And we all know Kiwanis is a global organization changing the world one child at a time, which is Nick, so thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and good morning, supervisors. It was suggested that I talk about a website award that our club recently was given, and a couple of other things about our club. We were selected as one of the top 10 Showcase Club websites. This is presented by the website provider that's contracted by Kiwanis International to provide web services. And it's presented for effective use of design elements, keeping your content up to date and that kind of stuff. So it's not very inspiring, but it's very important to us because our website is our primary vehicle for getting our message out to the community. And this year our theme is Kiwanis Everywhere, so that's we're very proud and honored to get that. But what we're really proud about is our community impact. And while we make monthly contributions to support the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, the homeless shelter, and the free clinic, it's really service to children, which is our primary focus. And one of our signature service projects is our elementary school fundraisers. We try to do about a half dozen of these a year, and we limit them and try to focus on Title I schools. When a school and its PTA have a school fair or carnival, they can call us, and we'll roll our food trailer, and we will purchase the food, we will prepare it and serve it, and then the PTA sets the ticket prices, they sell all the tickets, and they keep all the money. So we've helped them to raise thousands of dollars over the years for our local PTAs. We're also very proud to sponsor 11 service clubs to provide an opportunity for youth in our community to learn the value of service. We sponsor 2 key clubs at Royal and Simi Valley High Schools, at all 3 of the builders clubs at all 3 of the middle schools, and another one at the Boys and Girls Club. And we have 5 K-Kids clubs at the elementary schools, and we have more on the way. We also have an action club, which is designed for developmentally challenged adults. And to fund all this, we have our annual spring music festival, which is called Roundup, a rock and country music extravaganza, and this year's event will be on April 12th, and we would be very happy to see all of you come and enjoy yourselves that day at the beautiful Hummingbird Nest Ranch. I'd like to conclude this with an inspirational quote from former U.S. Senator and Kiwanian, Robert Dole, who said, "If we want a society that values life, honors character, rewards effort, cherishes its children, respects its elders, believes in justice, and lives in peace with itself and with others, then we must make it our business to instill such values in our young people." And Kiwanians have made this our business since 1925 and our club since 1965. So through our sponsored youth programs, we've passed the ideals of service to the new generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank Nick, because I've been a Kiwanian, Oxnard Kiwanis since 1987, so I want to thank you for being here and sharing this morning. So I was the president of Kiwanis and went through all the committees and built a lot of projects and worked with the Keys program and so forth at Oxnard High School and so forth. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right, Nick. Our future is our children. If we don't invest in our children, we don't have a future. So would you do the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
I certainly would. Would everyone please stand? Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you, Nick, for coming up. Appreciate that.
Keep up the good work with Kiwanis.
All right, and we have the minutes. I won't even say the date, just last week. How's that sound? These guys are on it.
Move the minutes.
We're going to move the minutes. We have a motion
Second.
and a second coming up. There we go. All right, and that's Mr. Powers. We have agenda review. Any changes?
Yes, thank you, Chair Foy. A few items. Item number 30, National Fall Prevention Awareness Presentation. A PowerPoint has been submitted and posted on the web. Item 33, Wireless Telecommunication Ordinance. A PowerPoint has been submitted. In addition, a comment letter from Paul Albritton has also been submitted. Both documents have been distributed and posted. Item 39, Flexible Benefits Program, Health Benefits Rates and Contract Providers for Plan Year 2014. Board letter and Exhibit 1 have been submitted, distributed, and posted. And finally, there's an addendum agenda, item 41, to the consent agenda. As to the consent, ratification, approval, and authorization for purchasing agent or to execute new contracts with the series of contractors for VCMC. It's item 41.
Okay,
That's it. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add or change? If not, we'll have a motion for the for the agenda as modified.
As modified.
Second.
Okay. Great. Then we'll move on to our consent items, which is 10 through 28 plus 41. Anybody have any issues on that, or anybody comments pulled or anything?
No consent.
Okay, let's move it.
I did wonder why 41 is a ratification. This looks like a tremendous lot of work was put together for that agenda item.
Do we have anybody here who'd like to talk on that? Eileen? Come on down, Eileen.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Eileen Fissler. Item 41 is a ratification because some of the contracts are already in place, so we are making revisions to extend some of the agreements to the end of this fiscal year.
Wouldn't it be possible to bring it forward before the extended expenditures were made so that we could approve the expenditures prior to them being spent and therefore being in the situation of being ratified?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Well, we'll try that next time.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Eileen. All right, so then we have, again, 10 through 28 plus 41. And we have a motion for the, there you go. We're trying to get there. There we go. Okay. We missing everybody? Everybody on board? Okay. So then that's consent. Let's go to public comments. We have some public comments. Lucas there.
There's an agenda item in here that says this is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. My mom died just this past Friday of breast cancer metastasized to the brain. She had 2 tumors in her head, which finally caused her to stop breathing. For about the past year, my mom had been taking medical marijuana tincture for the excruciating pain associated with her cancer. It had moved to the bones as well, and so every time she moved her back, she hurt. So she would take some tincture right before she moved her back, and that made it hurt a little bit less. And it also stimulated her appetite. She really needed to eat, and she knew that she couldn't eat, but taking this tincture made it so that she felt hungry. So I made her nice fruit smoothies with organic foods for the past months of her life. This tincture really helped her, and she needed safe access to it, but it was too expensive. It was too expensive through the dispensaries and delivery services. It was a burden every time we bought it, $40 or $50 for just a little bottle of it. And as the pain got worse, she had to keep taking more and more. So it was quite a high cost. And this medical marijuana tincture was legal for her to have. Her radiation oncologist told her that she should have it to help her with her pain and with her appetite. And I also honestly believe it helped her stay alive for a few extra months, because there has been some research indicating that it slows the spread of cancer cells. And so it really did help my mom. And the city of Ventura wants to pass a ban on delivery services and dispensaries. I'd like you to pass a moratorium on bans on delivery services and dispensaries in the county of Ventura, which would, I believe, make it illegal for the city to do this ban that they want. Additionally, to drive the cost down of this legal medicine which patients need, I've got a few ideas. You can offer business licenses with no fees to collectives, dispensaries, and delivery services. So that's a cost that they pass on to the patient. So if they don't have that cost, then the patient doesn't have that cost. I'd like the county to fund research to really show the world whether that those tumors can be stifled by the use of cannabis. And so we really need some scientific research. Maybe subsidize some solar panels for the growers that are vending to the delivery services and collectives, so that they can have some electricity which is sustainable, and they don't have to pay the high cost of energy, which is a cost that they pass on to the patients. And the county could itself become a collective and offer growing space for patients who have their legal medical marijuana recommendations, so they're allowed 6 flowering plants or 12 vegetating plants in the state of California. So that's 12 vegetating plants per patient. If 100 patients get together with a collective facilitated by the county and use county land and county water, then they can grow their own medicine without having to pay these delivery services and collectives the exorbitant rate for their medicine, which is legal in the state of California. And so that's really the distance that you have to travel to get to Los Angeles to go to a dispensary and actually see your medicine before it gets delivered is prohibitive for some patients. So you have to call the delivery service and get whatever they say they have. They'll bring it over, and you've got to buy it. And so these delivery services are not sufficient. We need storefront dispensaries so that we can see the medicine, talk to the bud tender, and let them know these are the symptoms that I'm having, this is what I might want to need, and they will be able to recommend something for you that can help you with your symptoms. My mom couldn't smoke it. She couldn't vaporize it. Her brain was on its way out the door, but she could lift up her tongue and take that tincture. So that was the method that worked out for her. So in the meantime, until you get a sustainable medical marijuana program together here in the county of Ventura, I would like to suggest a bus that goes to Los Angeles from the county government center or the transit center, and it could take people to the various places in LA that they need to get their legal medicine, and then bring them back to Ventura County so they can use it and alleviate their symptoms caused by cancer and AIDS and anorexia and all of the other ailments for which marijuana provides relief. So thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Sorry about the loss of your mom.
Yeah, sorry, Lucas.
Yeah, we know.
Taking cannabis sooner. That's what I'm always thinking. You know, she was diagnosed 5 years ago. She only started taking cannabis a year ago. And what if she had taken it 4 years ago? She might still be alive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Wilson, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to
My
see
name
you
is
again.
David H. Wilson. Excuse me flashing these credentials, but it's necessary for what I'm about to say. I am president of the Vietnam Veterans of Ventura County. I'm pastor of the Oxnard Bible Church, director of senior services for the Oxnard Clergy Council, secretary for the National Police Department Clergy Council, and a member of the Financial Abuse Specialist Team of Ventura County. As a veteran, I enlisted in the U.S. Army upon my graduation from Ventura High School in 1966. After my basic training, advanced training, and jump school, I was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky in January 1967. As a paratrooper, I deployed to Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division and arrived at Bien Hoa. After the Tet Offensive of January and February 1968, I moved up between the cities of Hue and Phu Bai to LZ Tombstone, which would become Camp Eagle. I extended my tour of duty in Vietnam, and in January 1969 was moved up to Quang Tri. My total tour of duty in Vietnam was 16 months. In April of 1969, I was honorably discharged. Besides the National Defense Ribbon, the Vietnam Service, and campaign ribbons, I was awarded 2 Army Commendation Medals and the Bronze Star. I first want to thank the board, and especially to Supervisor Foy, for inviting me last week for the moment of inspiration. I also am here to offer an apology for our reaction to comments that were made during the board meeting. I have had an opportunity, Lucas got hold of me to talk with him, and I've already made my apologies to him. I imagine it was rather intimidating, being surrounded by a number of Vietnam veterans the way they were. I'm by no means offering an excuse, rather an explanation into the reaction demonstrated. Vietnam Veterans of Ventura County has had the privilege for over the last 26 years to go into our high schools, middle schools, sharing our Vietnam experience and what it was like for us when we came home to a country hostile towards us. In the ground rules that we share before we take questions, we ask the students not to ask us about the weapons we used or how many we killed, as these questions open up a Pandora's box of nightmares, anger, and many other unresolved memories and issues. We explain to the students that there is no such thing as an unwounded soldier, and that you may take the soldier out of the war, but it's quite another thing to take the war out of the soldier. We know it is post-traumatic stress disorder. The wall in Washington, D.C. recognizes 58,282 who died in Vietnam, but you won't find on the wall the over 110,000 who committed suicide since leaving country. You won't find the names of those who have died as a result of exposure to Agent Orange. Even among our returning veterans from the desert wars, the suicide rate is appallingly high. It is estimated conservatively that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. This is not just an issue for the Veterans Administration. I believe other federal, state, county, and city organizations should be involved with this epidemic. I thank the Board of Supervisors for recognizing September as Suicide Prevention Month. And I want to thank Supervisor Bennett for his participation with us last Friday at the POW MIA Remembrance Ceremony at the Veterans Memorial. And I want to thank you all for your valuable time.
Mr. Wilson, it's just an honor to have you here, and it was a class act that you come back and talk about what happened, and I understand the emotion that went on, but you guys are class people, and we do honor you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I also just thank you for your courage.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Yes. Thank you. I think that's our last public comment, and we're going to go to board comments, but I'd like to call Mr. Groskol down first before we start our public comments. I know he has a couple of things he'd like to say. Gentlemen, Mr. Wilson? Dave?
Yes.
Can you hang on? I know Mr. Groskol wants to say a few things here.
Good morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers. I just wanted to address a few of the follow-up actions that we have taken in the General Services Agency since the incidents of a couple of weeks ago at the Veterans Memorial. In addition to all the things we already do, first of all, we're going to place a ban on open flames at the Government Center. This was in response to the wax candles that left wax debris at the memorial after the event. And so as a safety measure as well as an issue of cleanliness, and in light of the fact that there are electric candles that look really good and can be used and they're perfectly safe, we are going to not allow open flames of any kind at the Government Center and obviously the memorial as well. We're also going to increase our security in response to another incident like this where there was an unscheduled or unknown event that took place after hours. We're going to post a security guard to observe activities until the event disperses, with the express task of looking after county property and especially those memorials. So we're going to take that action. We're also going to remind any groups that do reserve the memorial, any of our memorials, that those memorials are for bona fide memorial service type activities and not for political protests or demonstrations of any kind. And any group that violates that will not get a permit in the future. And finally, with respect to cleanliness, anytime there is an event, even a demonstration that occurs on the sidewalk, GSA personnel will follow up after it's over and make sure that the areas adjacent are clean, that there was no trash left over, and with special focus on the memorials that we have. So those are the immediate actions we're going to take, and we will continue to adjust as necessary.
Well, Paul, thank you for responding to Mr. Wilson's comments, and I'm sure they're appreciative and shows the respect that we have for those memorials, and also yourself as a vet that understands that, but also for the taxpayer who pays to have these kind of buildings, that they should be protected, and people should respect the property. And so I appreciate you willing to do that, and thank you for coming up while Mr. Wilson was here and also there to be there. So thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Yep. Okay, let's go on to our board comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to share that last week all of us attended the United Way Spirit of Community Awards in Camarillo, and there was some close to 400 individuals that were there to thank the volunteers that volunteer for Ventura County. And I especially want to thank Mike Salachi. I've known Mike for years and years, and he got the highest award. And Mike, when I used to, we were members of a committee over in Oxnard. We had meetings at 6:30 in the morning, and he would drive all the way from his home, got up at 3 in the morning just to attend those meetings. But I just want to thank Mike Salachi publicly and of course United Way and all the volunteers that were there. Also, I attended the Day of Kids at Oxnard, Port Hueneme. In Oxnard, there was 3,000 attendees, that families. And I want to thank again our county agencies. Michael, we had everybody there from Ventura County to share information about what we do here in Ventura County and Oxnard also. So it was really well attended at the Day of Kids in Oxnard. In fact, I got my flu shot there, which is really great. And also, of course, the Day of Caring is coming this Saturday. We're going over to the Colonia Gym, where Garcia and most of the famous boxers came out from. It's in disrepair, and we're going over Saturday, and we're going to paint it. We're going to set up a new ring and fix up the yard and paint the walls and so forth. So this is going to be the Saturday from about 8:30 to about noon. It's over on First Street and Roosevelt in Colonia, so we're going to be there. And also we're having the nuclear preparedness town hall meeting in Oxnard on Thursday. And I just want to share with the folks that this is part of the Acquaintance from Ventura County residents to understand nuclear preparedness campaign. And I want to read this little part here because I think it's important, because people have called me. It says the meeting is also to assure residents that there's no known nuclear threat, and to explain that the campaign was created to augment other county emergency preparedness plans such as wildfires and tsunamis and earthquakes. So we're not preparing for a nuclear, well, we are preparing for a nuclear campaign or blast, but we do not know of any nuclear threats. So I think it's important that people understand that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a journal memory of or not?
Oh, excuse me, and I do have just a couple of people.
That's good.
To adjourn the memory. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Supervisor, I had, and I think there was one on VCMC campus too, the nuclear preparedness campaign launch. And I'll say this, the public health, it's an excellent presentation, well prepared, and there were probably about 60 folks who showed up at Camarillo City Hall. cross-section of the community, good questions asked. Dr. Levin did an excellent job in responding to them. And I think at the end of, in fact, I know because I heard from folks who were there that they appreciated the information and to start the community dialogue. So I think it's worthy of doing. Just as we prepare for everything else, this is one of those that you don't really like to think or talk about, but we need to be prepared. I would also like to thank the Ventura County Arts Council. I was able to attend the reception Friday evening that they held for the current exhibit that's been up in our wonderful walls here in the Government Center and hallways, and to particularly thank those in my district who participated, who were there, and that's the Santa Paula Society of the Arts and the Studio Channel Islands exhibit. It has been, as all these exhibits are, I think, just delightful to see and to see the different artists and the mediums and the creativity. And what was special about the reception Friday night is they have now launched a effort to have a poet laureate declared for the county of Ventura, and so they had some poetry, and one from a woman in Camarillo, and I didn't write her name down, but she was 89 years old, and she recited her poetry two different times that evening, and really wonderful. So the Arts Council is just doing a great job, I think, in both the countywide elevation of the arts, engagement of the arts, and getting the community excited about taking the arts into the schools and to making art a very important part of our community fabric. So I appreciate, I know GSA is fully engaged with them in all of the exhibits that take place, and appreciate the support that they lend to the arts. And then there's an article in the paper today that was drafted by the taxpayer group regarding the Oxnard landfill deal. And I know this has been out there in discussion, obviously, between Oxnard and the Simi Valley Waste Management Landfill. What is frankly surprising to me in this article is that it's on Oxnard's consent agenda this evening, and to my knowledge, there has not been any communication, certainly to my office, and they're looking to change some direction at Tolan Landfill, and so that's disturbing. And I also know that VRSD certainly has public meetings, but I generally have very good communications with them, did not know that this discussion had taken place, and I'm surprised at the direction that they are proposing to take here. I think it could have implications to our county, and certainly could have implications to Tolan Landfill. If, in fact, the information in the taxpayer's article is accurate, the capacity issues at Tolan are called to question. I would like to ask that our CEO see if you can have some communication with the city manager at Oxnard and see if that item could be pulled off of the agenda until which time we have an opportunity to get a report. I'd like to get information from our solid waste department on the pros and cons and what it means to us. I would like to certainly have some information looking at the past agendas of VRSD to see what full discussion may or may not have taken place there. Well, I think I've probably called out what I think are the issues. Back in the day when there was a solid waste commission, there certainly was better communications. The county is left out of the VRSD governing authority, and there's pros and cons on that, but because we are the regulator for the landfills is my understanding of the basic issue. But that certainly shouldn't mean that we're left out of something as significant as shifting what is now going to take place in both the operational side of the delivery of and management of waste, but also the impacts to Tolan that could create some significant issues in that for the community around Tolan landfill. And VCOG is the, what is it, the LEA for solid waste. Has this been on VCOG's agenda?
No, VCOG isn't doing anything about this.
Begs the question. So I would like to ask that you do that. I certainly will follow up with a call to the elected leadership in Oxnard and ask the same. But I would like to, unfortunately, next week, I will only be here in the morning. I'm going to Washington to work on the sand issues with Port Hueneme and the Channel Islands Harbor, but if in 2 weeks we could get some information back. And I would hope that Oxnard will listen to our request and will respect it and ask that we have some opportunity to discuss and review this.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just to share a little bit of information, and I know it's not in the agenda, but there's two sides to every story. One of the things that we should find out is that all of us, every city in the western Ventura County used to dump at the Santa Clara landfill, which is now the golf course. One of the concerns that I shared with the supervisor this morning is that we're all going to be liable for that waste that's underneath that landfill. So I think it might be an opportunity to find out why the Oxnard is doing what they're doing in VRSD, because if there's not sufficient dollars there, the question would be who's going to handle that liability that we have forever on that landfill, because Ventura, Oxnard, Camarillo, Hueneme, everybody dumped at that landfill for years and years. Just for information, I'm not going to discuss this more because it's not on the agenda, but we need to find out those issues and concerns, because there's a pro and con and everything.
Okay, thank you, supervisors. Our office will follow up with the city of Oxnard, city manager, as well as our own staff here, and report back. Thank you.
I do appreciate that, because besides what's ever going on and all that, it has a couple $100,000 or millions of dollars impact on us as a county on the revenue source that we depend on for our general fund too. So there's some issues there. So thanks.
And thank you, Supervisor Long, for bringing it forward. I think it would be helpful to have a closer review, seeing that they're now dipping into their reserves, actually out of reserves, and so that is a big problem when they can't meet their operating revenue, and reports of general manager making close to $300,000, one of the highest in the county. Pardon? Yeah, more than our CEO, comparing.
I'm sure the CEO's office take on that management too. It's okay.
So anyway, I do appreciate having a closer look at this. You don't want to end up in a situation where they go bankrupt. And
Mr. Chair, real quick, just for information, I served at VRSD for about 12 years personally, and at one time the county had a representative there at VRSD. What happened in the past? Why that we don't have a member there anymore is a question, and maybe we ought to look at having a representative at VRSD. Just an idea.
Just a little bit that I understand about this, what you talk about going to reserves, there is something about those reserves, because when a landfill closes down, there's a responsibility of managing that landfill when it's closed down, and that's what those reserves are there for. So it's something, because it happened in Simi Valley, I think at one time when they had a landfill closed down, there wasn't enough reserves, and all of the landfills from throughout our district or region had to do it, and it cost everybody a lot of money, and all the residents of all those areas had to pay more because they ought to pay for it. So there's some issues about making sure that's managed correctly in the long term. So I appreciate you taking a look at that, Mike, and Supervisor Long bringing this up.
yeah, they're looking at losses of $1.2 million a year. That's significant. Shall I do my board comments? Okay. I was able to attend a dedication to the Boys and Girls Club that just opened up at Kalina Middle School, and they named it in honor of Cal and Marge Johnston. Cal has donated millions of his own dollars towards the Boys and Girls Club out there, but in addition has brought in other funds to the tune of about $6 million total dollars, and has an incredibly good concept for doing these Boys and Girls Club, where they build them on the middle school campuses so they're not having to pay for those land costs, but you get this incredible synergy with the kids being able to go right there after school, not have to work on trying to transport them to a separate facility, so you save the transportation costs. Makes it very convenient for the parents, but has a great, as I said, synergy with the campus itself. They share the gym together, and it's really a support of the schools having the Boys and Girls Club there. And the Conejo Valley Unified School District, I think, has been very futures oriented in looking at how they can do best for their students, and this is just working out well, and so very appropriately named Boys and Girls Club out there after Cal and Marge Johnston, and congratulate him for his good work there. Also, as Supervisor Zaragoza pointed out, we were able to attend the community Spirit of the Community with the United Way, and it was nice to see Mike Salachi get recognized. He is a very hard-working volunteer. I wanted to also thank Dave Fleisch for coming to our Casa Conejo Municipal Advisory Council meeting last week. We had a pretty full house there and some very educated MAC members. They really do their homework and they go above and beyond and asking some very detailed questions, and not only Mr. Fleisch, but the City of Thousand Oaks had their transportation fellow Cliff Finley there, and so it was nice to see such good representative government, that here are the people in charge of the flooding issues that are out there, the road work issues, and giving direct answers to the residents who had some very major issues that they wanted to have addressed. So my thanks for coming there and working with the residents on that, which is an ongoing thing. I also wanted to give kudos to the Sheriff's Department for some really good work. We are always getting press releases on crimes that have basically been solved. We had someone sees burglars leaving their house when they pulled up, and the fact that the police department could so quickly get on the scene and find that car, they had a license plate, and arrest the suspect. That was just tremendous, as well as a recent fraud at a bank there that someone had put in scanning, near the ATMs, and we're able to track them all the way down to Santa Clara County and working with them and able to, again, apprehend the folks that were doing that. So just some really good police work that we're seeing. We have an incredible sheriff's department, and they do a wonderful job. We're very fortunate. Also was able to attend the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. Our first meeting was yesterday, and to get the combination of the Alcohol and Drug Advisory Board people and the Mental Health Board people. We've got a really good energy in the room, and I know that everybody really wants to get down to work. We have to wait for a little bit so we can get our new executive directors elected and all that, but people were very eager to get to work and work with each other and meeting new people, and so I'm really happy to see that. And our nuclear preparedness is in my district. The Nuclear Preparedness Community Town Hall meeting is going to be coming up at 7 p.m., and that is this Wednesday at the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza. So looking forward to joining them at the Thousand Oaks City Hall to have the community learn, as you're saying, about what you can do, some very simple things you can do to be prepared, even though it's something we don't want to think about or talk about. You need to know about it. So I'm glad that it is coming forward so people can learn just in case something does happen. Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy last night till 11 o'clock at night. Had some detailed discussion. There's an environmental impact statement out on the cleaning up of the Santa Susana Field Lab, and there have been a lot of questions as to whether it should be cleaned up to what has already been agreed upon. And that to me is a given. It's already been agreed upon, so you clean it to that. But there are a lot of elements at play to try to reduce the cleanup And so we had that discussion and decided that the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy doesn't really have the expertise to determine what radiological contamination should be left or not left. So leave that to the experts. And I don't really see it as an environmental issue. I see it as a public health issue. And I think we have to deal with the public health first and foremost. So good to see where that's going, and look forward to seeing the conclusion of the process and the approval of the work and getting that place cleaned up and moving on from there. And that concludes my comments. No closing in honor today.
I'd like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list. Start that off. And then I note that on October 1st, we're going to be having an update from Matt Carroll regarding the jail facility. And just, recent information about the mentally ill in the LA County Jail just reminds me of everything that we can do to try to address this issue of our jails becoming, sort of the de facto Camarillo State Hospitals of Southern California. So I just would I hope we can get a full report on what's happening with the mentally ill there at the same time, and the real benefit that we have of the sheriff's request for us to add on the medical facilities. And I know there's some people concerned about that, and I think it's really misplaced in that it's just going to be much better for those people with medical conditions that are going to require that, et cetera. So I'd like us to just try to not accept just the status quo, that's how it's going to be, and constantly be creative about what we can do with the issue of the mentally ill in the hospital. We did have the pleasure of having the first nuclear presentation in the county, and I bit my tongue last week when Supervisor Long was touting how well organized they were in her district to have the first one, right? But that's but we did have it, and I appreciated the opportunity. I just think that there are a number of things, and the landscape has changed back from the 1950s when we, prepared for a different kind of nuclear disaster than a terrorist coming here. And so I applaud us for being ready. I think in general you have to say Ventura County is better prepared for emergencies than most. Our wildfires don't result in losses of structures like in other places, anywhere near to the degree of other places. And we have a tsunami preparation. We're prepared for earthquakes. We have great collaboration between everybody, and this just rounds that preparation out. I know board members, time to time we talked about the OK drill up in Ojai, and that's where citizens on September 18th post a sign that says they're okay, so that the disaster personnel know they don't have to spend time checking that home. Well, they have over 1,100 people put the signs up. Now that's, for a small, city like Ojai, that's a remarkable number of people, posting these signs up, and there's just a real community spirit that goes along with this thing. So I really want to applaud the people for doing it, and we're going to try to do some more things next year to pop the program even more. But it's the 6th annual one, and the CERT program training, and again, it fits with the disaster preparation that's out there. Supervisor Long covered the Arts Council meeting on Friday night at the same time that I covered the Vietnam vets, and I'm sorry that they didn't recognize the fact that you were inside, which I had mentioned to them at the same time, but I covered the Vietnam vet memorial. And then there was coastal cleanup last Saturday at the state beach, and I was able to attend that. It's just always good to see people bring their families out. I think it really is good for passing values down to kids that they should participate in things like coastal cleanup and stuff. So final thing I wanted to point out, appreciate the article passed out here with the Taxpayers Association. I haven't had a chance to study all this. It's always good to have more light shed and questions. One statement that was made in here, it said, we don't see the operating efficiencies reducing prices. It says here, normally increasing volume would lead to higher operating costs. Well, it's higher total operating costs, but it would decrease the the unit cost usually come down. So I'm not quite sure what they mean there, but glad that this is being looked at in light of the fact, in particular, Puente Hills, which is one of the largest landfills in the country, in Los Angeles, closes on October 31st. So not very, 5 weeks from now, and then they're going to be starting to look for where. Well, they're already starting to look for where they're going to be transporting trash. So our landfill capacity is something that I think we have to really look at as a very precious resource, and we should make sure that we maximize this resource for Ventura County residents as we go forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, to follow up on, as Dave Wilson said today, the suicide prevention thing last week, but I don't know if you saw that the Defense Department has added $100 million to research, support counselors, and everything else. And as we heard earlier today, he was talking about 22 people a day. I mean, just a tremendous, tremendous amount. So I'm glad to see that they're seeing the same issues and putting some money after this to try to figure out what we can do about that. Anything to do to help these, heroes that we honor. Also, before I came here today, I had the opportunity to meet with Judge Bach, Judge Toy White, Judge O'Neill, and Mike Planet from the courts, and to get an update on what's going on. Remember, we contributed some money to keep East County Courthouse open. One of the goals was to try to get the allocation changed, and that has worked out. And so we're going to go up about 0.5% or something over the next few years, which is going to give us some more money. So as it looks right now for this next year going forward, they're going to have enough money to keep the courthouse open and do that. It was interesting as I took a bus ride from Simi Valley up to here. It took me about 5 hours to get here, so I can see that that's good because we don't want people to have to deal with that issue.
Really?
Well, 4 hours and 45 minutes. Yeah, 7 o'clock to 11:30. Anyway, it was a long ordeal. But some nice people I met on the way. Some really interesting people.
That's what it's all about.
There were some great people. There were some really great people.
There's a segment of society you miss if you don't take the bus, and it's a great group.
There's a whole segment that says, I won't take the bus, it takes too long. But I've heard that.
Yeah.
But, but the poor...
But it's one countywide seamless system.
No, that's where I think it's a problem. That's a problem. Let me tell you. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. You don't want to get me on that. There's a lot more efficiencies they brought in.
I've been taking it to VCTC, and I get there in about a half hour.
From where?
It's good. From Thousand Oaks.
To where?
To VCTC.
Oh, okay.
They're not all like that.
Oh, yeah, VCT's. Well, to get to Camarillo, that's right. You got to go 12 miles. That's good, half an hour. Anyway, so it was just an interesting deal. But I'm just glad to see that this is working. The state has worked out. They've been able to do this. And we were one of the first that jumped in and gave some money to help support that. And it's been tremendous. They've learned a few things in there. But, there's just a whole bunch of things. But it's also, there's a new bill out they were just talking about today where if the courts had done any work with any of their employees in the past and have contracted out, they might have to come back and not be able to contract out. They do this for parking tickets, 185,000 parking tickets or some number that they said would cost them now about 120,000 to a cost over $450,000 to do. So some of these bills we got to watch what happens because it'll be a major effect because they found some efficiencies to try to make it cheaper for them. Anyway, so it's just a good opportunity. Again, we were the leaders in trying to help along with the cities. They all came together in a community. As you talked about, this community works well together to try to keep thousands of people not having to come this way during that time. So anyway, it was good to hear that this morning. So they were excited about it. They said, we got 1 year. Let's hope we can get next year. Who knows what the budget's going to do. And also, as our HR department comes up and talks about rates today in healthcare, they're wondering what those are going to be too, because that affects their budgets too. But also in adjourned memory of, I also wanted to recognize the passing of Patsy Swayze, mother of the late actor Patrick Swayze. She was well known in our area, a choreographer, a dance instructor, and she had passed on. She was 86, but she had taught a lot of dance for a long time. Maybe that's who taught her son how to dance. Who knows? So anyway, just memory of her. So those are my comments for today, and we are going to be so on time. We're going to get done here quick. This is going to be a great meeting. So why don't we go to our items we have on our regular agenda, and we can get some of these good people out of here. So why don't we go to number 38? There she is.
Good morning, members of the board, Chairman, Mr. Powers. My name is Talia Barrera with the Workforce Investment Board, Item 38 before you is a recommendation to approve 4 reappointments in good standing for a 2-year term and 1 new appointment to our board. The reappointments are Alex Rivera with Clean Diesel Technologies, Jim Fall with South Coast Engineering, Victoria Jump with Area Agency on Aging, and Nancy Williams with Southern California Edison. The new appointment is Iris Ingram, representing the Ventura County Community College District. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Any comments? You wonder why Victoria, she'll do everything for you, right? That's good. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming up. All right, now we'll hear about these rates. All the hard work they've done to save money. I love it.
Good morning, Chair Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers, who's off camera. For the record, Kelly Shirk, County Executive Office, Human Resources. The recommended actions before you today provide for premium rates for plan year 2014 for our health, dental, and vision plans for active employees and COBRA participants, effective in the new plan year, December 22nd, 2013. In July of this year, we received proposed rate increases from HealthNet for our HMO, or Health Maintenance Organization, and our High Deductible Health Plan Preferred Provider Organization, or PPO. Unfortunately, the rate increases were 36% and 25% respectively. In addition, HealthNet also stated they were no longer supportive of our super composite rate structure and would no longer allow us to provide the same rates to our non-Medicare retirees. So in an effort to provide the best benefits for our employees for these 2 plans, an HMO and a PPO, we worked with our consultant, Aon Hewitt, to survey the market to see if we could identify insurance companies that were willing to work with us to offer an HMO and a PPO. 2 vendors provided us proposals. They were Blue Shield and United Healthcare. And after careful consideration, we're recommending that we enter into a contract with United Healthcare, which will provide 2 HMOs with 2 different networks and a PPO as well. Network 1 rate was increased by 6.6% over our current health at HMO, and Network 2 would increase by 20.2% above the current rate. The plan components would mirror our current options, so no significant changes there. And our PPO rate would only increase by 1%. We also recommend the renewal of our Ventura County Healthcare Plan for their HMO. And VCHCP is not proposing any plan changes or benefit changes to our plan for 2014. And they came in with a very modest increase of 3.23%. This year, following a small decrease last year, their opt-out rate is increasing by 5.35%. And again, for our dental insurance, to ensure the county is offering the most cost-effective dental plans to our employees, a formal RFP was processed this year. The goal was to see if a rate change structure and plan design would help stabilize or slow the rate of increases that we've seen in prior years. We received 5 proposals from outside vendors for dental services. We are recommending that the dental rate be moved to a 3-tier rate. MetLife was able to meet these requirements and increase the benefits from $1,250 a year to $2,000 a year, which was very exciting for us. Offering a single dental PPO we felt was the best option for our employees. We're also recommending that we renew the contract with Medical Eye Services for Vision Plan. Exhibit 1, page 1, lists the proposed carrier rates and for active employees, and page 2 lists COBRA rates for our county-sponsored health plan. Brent Crane from Aon Hewitt is with us today if you have any questions regarding the processes we went through, and me and our staff would be happy to answer any questions.
I just have one question about the opt-out rates.
Yes,
I know it's always been an issue, but my understanding is, if I'm reading this right, is the opt-out rate has now gotten to the point where you actually have to pay to opt out a small amount.
There's a small amount that's refunded to regular and full-time employees.
It's a small amount of refund.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be okay. I just want to make sure, as a policy, I absolutely, if the opt-out rate becomes higher than what we contribute to the employee shouldn't have to pay something to opt out, right? So I want to make
Correct.
sure we cap the opt-out. I mean, people are not getting very much for their opt-out now, right? But certainly they should not have to pay for it. So, okay, so the way you're reading it is they're getting a small refund.
Yes, it went up $10 basically this last year, but they still have close to $30 in cash back they receive.
All right, thank you. And we've talked about it, the opt-out thing is a frustrating issue that we try to deal with, but, okay.
I misspoke, it's around $80 in cash back.
Thank you.
For opt-out.
Per pay period, I think, isn't it?
Yes, per pay period. Part-time is capped, so if you opt out as a part-time employee, it's the same amount. You don't have to pay to opt out.
Okay, so no part-time. I
Right.
just want to make sure nobody has to pay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. Crane a question?
Sure.
Brent, appreciate you coming. And
You bet.
you're doing it. I know that there's been Health Net here for a long, long time that you've put in here. And when change comes, people sometimes have questions and everything else. And a lot of people we know listen to this. And I just wonder if just to hear from you, the expert, we talk about United Healthcare, one of the biggest insurance carriers. Maybe you want to give them just some comfort in there's change and some what's happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could, the process was an incredible process. Went through one that I hadn't gone through. I work with a lot of counties and states. Is that this process include Mr. Powers and Mr. Carroll and interviewing the carriers and really addressing a partnership that the county wants to join with these carriers. As mentioned, United Healthcare, which we have a great relationship with, which is, along with Anthem Blue Cross, the largest insurance company in the country. They have a very robust public sector group that I work with directly. They have incredible financials, financial strength, and some very state-of-the-art plan designs. So you can feel very comfortable that they're going to meet your needs. In fact, Kelly didn't mention that we have a second-year rate cap, which has contingencies showing their willingness to work with the county. There are some contingencies that we have to discuss with them going forward, but it's a very viable plan over the next at least 2 years. And there's been some commitment on the county to work with them as far as dealing with some of the issues as far as making sure this plan remains viable.
Right. Well, good. I appreciate that. And again, being in Brent's business, I understand that it's not easy for a large organization like this to make changes, but the right thing to do and where things were going, and you picked a good carrier to do it with, and somebody who can be a long-term player for the county too. So
great, thank you. We totally agree.
Yeah, that's great. So good. Unless there's anything else, anybody else questions, comments? I'm glad to see some of those rates. I'm glad to, part of the county plan helps keep these rates under control too. Mike?
I was just going to say good work.
Mike?
Thank you.
Well, just to echo a bit of what's been said, and to thank Kelly and Susan DeMaio and Tracy and Brent and his team. A lot of work went in to make sure we had continuity of coverage and to protect our employees from significant increases. These are increases, no question, but what was being faced was much, much higher than this. So we appreciate the work in protecting our plan members. Thank you.
Okay.
I just thank you for the work too. It's I think that the Management and Labor Health Committee is I look to them to make sure that all of their concerns and questions are addressed, and the work with HR. And I know that we're all sensitive to the price point, and that's important, but there is, as we know, in the whole healthcare arena, the sensitivity of having as little change when you're talking about your personal doctors as possible, and to know that this change still has the quality of care and access that the employees want and need, and so I think that work has been solid. Thank you.
And I also want to thank you because I think those rates are very competitive. If you compare those rates with other rates, that I think our employees are going to benefit from that. And I want to thank you for the good work. Mm-hmm.
Good enough. Well, thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks. One more vote. Everybody voted? There we go.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. What's that?
Maybe we could redo that vote, Mr. Zaragoza. undid his vote. Yes, I have recorded.
You undid your vote?
I'm okay.
He wasn't the one.
You want to revote? How do you want to do it?
He's good with it.
I'm okay.
Do you have to just have us do it again?
Okay.
One more time with Field.
Yeah. It was such a big deal. He wants to vote on that twice. There we go. There we go. All right. You got it, Kelly. Mr. Flesh, you got something exciting to talk about. Depends where you come from.
Good morning. Chair Foy, Supervisors, Mr. Powers, for the record, I'm Dave Fleisch with the Public Works Agency Transportation Department. I appreciated your comments, Supervisor, on the amount of time it took you to ride the bus from Simi to here, and this.
I want to ask if you've done that already.
I have not, and I appreciate that you did. That's something I need to do. But hopefully this item before you this morning will assist us in becoming more uniform and having a more regional approach to transportation here within Ventura County. Excuse me, at your June 4th board meeting, we presented the concepts for this East County Memorandum of Understanding, and your board approved the CEO to sign a letter stating our commitment to complete that by the end of the summer. And that's exactly what we've done. Our staffs of the cities of Moore Park, Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, Camarillo, and the county have worked diligently throughout the summer in order to present this MOU that you have before you today. In particular, I'd like to thank Kathy Connell, who's sitting out in the audience here from my staff, who's really been one of the key drivers in this from the beginning and in helping us maintain the sanity as we went through this. In addition, I'd like to thank Tom Temple from our county counsel's office, in that he was the lead on the legal portion of this, and we did all the front end work from the county perspective, and then it went to the cities after we had done that work. So without Kathy and Tom doing all the work they did, we wouldn't have gotten this to where it is today. So far, of the 5 agencies, Moore Park approved this on the 4th of September, Simi Valley on the 9th, Camarillo on the 11th, and it's going to the city of Thousand Oaks this evening as well, to their city council, in addition to being here before your board. One of the items that's a part of this is the Exhibit A to the MOU, which are the transit goals and objectives that we have, and those will be what we will be working with as we start into this process. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Comments, questions? Supervisor?
No questions, but just I'm happy to see that there is the collaboration going on there, and also that the objective is to enhance service, and I applaud that, because I know I think when the bus operators were all looking at trying to do the West County, they forgot really the emphasis has to be the bus patron. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the transit goals here, they are directly looking at trying to do better than what we have. And, that's the objective, and I'm glad that that's what they're looking forward to. And also how some contracts can go, I know can take, a year to get, the wording right and this and that. So I appreciate that you were able to get all those cities and the county, and, that they were all able to work together and get this put together. The objective to me has to be one county system in the long run, and hopefully if this is going strong, it will be easier to meld it together with the West County too. And also want to thank Kathy Connell for her good work. She is a great person to have driving. Thanks.
And I want to second the motion too on that. Kathy, you're excellent, and Dave.
To drive.
And Gold Coast, VCTC, and anything with transportation, excellent.
I'd just like the opportunity to explain my vote a little bit. I've opposed this concept. At the same time, I'm going to support it today, because oftentimes it happens in this business. You don't like the way, you think something should have gone a different way, but now that it is where it is, this is better than not having this. Right. So
good point.
I'm going to support this today.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. There we go. Thank you. Again, Dave, thanks for doing that, and I'm looking forward for that 1-hour flight, driving the bus up here. I can help you with that.
Tell us when you get there.
Yeah. All right, so we have a few minutes. Leroy, can we finish up that one issue in closed session, you think? Barbara? If everybody here to that? Yeah. Want to see? Okay.
A good chair would make sure we could get that done in that time.
But it's for later.
The lights are red. We're on. All right, we'll come back to order. We're going to go to item number 29, a resolution proclaiming September 2013 as Hunger Action Month, recognizing the importance of the role of Food Share and its many partner agencies in providing food and nourishment to those in need. Bonnie's here with us, President and CEO of Food Share. She'll be accepting this resolution. So, Bonnie, come on up.
Sure. And I'm not by myself.
Yeah, I know. No, I think you brought a few of your close friends, huh?
I did. I brought the Food Share family.
Good.
So always, we begin with a very big thank you and a hello to all of you. Supervisor Bennett, Supervisor Parks, Supervisor Foy, Supervisor Long, and Supervisor Zaragoza, and of course our wonderful County Executive Officer, Mike Powers. So good to see you.
She didn't call us wonderful.
I got to see the draft beforehand. So
That's right. So it's really a moment of gratitude. It's also a moment to take pause and think through what we see as a county around the health and sustainability of our citizens. The over 800,000 friends that occupy Ventura County and each and every day look for that quality of life and do their best to get there. There's about 102,000 of those friends that need help, that are hunger insecure, as you know. And so each year, the fact that you give us a couple of minutes to pause and talk about that. Recently, at a sustainability discussion for the Civic Alliance, we had one of those aha moments from those that were present. And it was just that idea of the entire county needs to think about the overall health, the environment, our economics, and most importantly, of course, our people. And so the Food Share family is here today to say thank you to the County Board of Supervisors for recognizing Hunger Action Month. Across America, we now have over 39 million people that are receiving some sort of supplemental food assistance. A major part of that support and help comes through SNAP or CalFresh, and our food banks across the country help pick up the rest. Those 39 million collectively we're serving together. And here in Ventura County, it's about 75,000 friends, or a little over 18,500 families. And just to kind of pause and think about that, that's a significant amount of folks. But there's 102,000 that need our help, and that's based on the poverty rate. And in fact, recently here, your county team and staff was instrumental in helping deliver an article about poverty and our hunger insecure and who they were and where they lived and how many they were. And knowing that it's cost about $85,000 a year in annual household income for a family to live in Ventura County, thank goodness we have a county that steps up to ensure that no one goes hungry here in Ventura County. And it is a beautiful family and network, which you are part of. We have over 162 individual nonprofit partners now that are here in this community, from rescue missions to Boys and Girls Clubs to our church pantry organizations and service clubs, who all volunteer, get up and say, it's not okay with us that anybody be hungry, and we will help with that. And so they come to Food Share, and where we aggregate the food and the resources. They pick up that food, or we deliver it direct, and they get that out directly into the hands of those that need it most. Our fastest growing area of need are our seniors. There's something called the silver tsunami, and I'm not sure that you've heard about this yet. But here in the United States, we have an ever-growing need in our seniors. And you want to talk about it's a not okay moment with us. You've worked your entire life, and now you have to make a decision between medicine or food. It's really not okay. And of course, our kids, we know, they'll fidget at school, they can't think, they have empty bellies. But again, Ventura County is very unique, and we know that. In fact, recently, the National Ad Council came in with Feeding America and filmed a beautiful commercial that will be shown all across the United States, and it's called Food Angels. And in 30 seconds, you can see those that make it possible for us to serve, and those partners that are helping us get the food out. And they chose our county to film the commercial. They interviewed dozens of different areas, and when they left, the one compliment that really stayed with me said, "We've never seen a community like yours. You guys picked up the phones, the Boys and Girls Club helped, the farmers and the growers helped, the volunteers were there. Everybody came together to help deliver this message." And so we'll make sure to send you a link of that, and when you see that, that's home. That's right here, and we're very grateful with that. And so with that, behind me, I have our Food Share Board of Directors. I have representatives of some of our elected officials in the community, our wonderful Food Share staff and team, our County Ag Commissioner, who works very closely with us in building awareness about hunger in our agricultural community. And we're very grateful to all of these friends for being here today. They have your new posters to present to you, so they're going to come up now and do that. You've got two posters that they'll be bringing up to you. And one poster, of course, has your beautiful picture and talks about those friends that help distribute food and how they do it. So if it's a senior program, a kids program, or a direct program, that's on there. On the other poster, also by your district, are those partners that work with Food Share that help us make it possible to have those resources that we steward, so that you can have that and celebrate with us all these great food angels and hunger heroes out there. Why don't you take the posters up?
Hey, Bonnie, I think those pictures need to be updated a little bit.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you so much for the good work and all the volunteers and all the individuals that are helping.
You're very, very welcome. I know just for a moment, Melissa Livingston, our past president, is going to offer a couple of words of thanks. And our Ag Commissioner, just a quick snapshot of how much food. So, Mel?
That looks just like you, Steve, doesn't it?
It's a good picture.
I remember when.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm just thanking Bonnie, for the good work and all the volunteers. And this is really outstanding when the County of Ventura just comes up, and nationally, I think that's what you said. And there was a nice picture of you. What was the name of that magazine that you were on?
Oh, American Latino.
I'm Latino. I just want to commend you for that, because it was just excellent representation for the County of Ventura.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank all the volunteers for...
We will. In fact, I think Mel's going to touch on that for a minute.
Yes, I just want to briefly thank the board and our CEO, Mike Powers. It's always an honor and privilege to be before you when we talk about food sharing, and for me it's even more special being a county employee and recognizing the spirit that we have in support of hunger in our community and the work that we do in the county, and being able to also parlay that into being a board member and part of the food share team is enormous. Just want to thank you for your continued support. This month is an important month, and it is not just about educating people about hunger. It's about creating a solution to hunger in our community. We need to end hunger in our community, and we can only do that if we come together. And so we celebrate the fact that we have a network of over 160 plus agencies that support us, and a network of 300 to 400 volunteers that support us, and the support that we receive from you. So we thank you for that support, and we thank you for helping us address not only hunger but food insecurity. I'm sure you're aware that as of November 1st, the federal stimulus dollars go away for support of the food stamp grant, or the SNAP grant, or as we call it, CalFresh. And so families are going to be receiving less than they've been receiving over the last 4 or 5 years since 2009, which that means is that we're going to need to find more food in our community to help fill that gap. And so we certainly appreciate your support and ongoing support of Food Share and addressing hunger in our community. I'll turn it over to Henry.
Good morning, Chairman Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers. Thank you so much for the opportunity, for the proclamation, and for recognition for Food Share and all of their many partners I wanted to, as Ag Commissioner, come up here and just give some additional recognition. It's in the proclamation, but I want to give some additional recognition to the agricultural industry. For me, as Agricultural Commissioner and as somebody who has experienced or who experienced hunger as a child, it pleases me to no end to know that the county that is my home and that the industry that I serve gives so much attention and recognition and support to address those individuals that don't have enough to eat or that suffer from food insecurity. There's approximately 100,000 that Bonnie mentioned that experience food insecurity, and yet only about 75,000 seek assistance from food share. So there's 25,000 people out there that fall through the cracks or are too proud to seek assistance. I think we need to identify those individuals and to make it easier for them to get the food. This year, I reported in the annual crop report that it was a record year for agriculture for 2012. 2013 is not looking so good. Weather issues, labor issues, water scarcity. Next year, no doubt, this year will not be a record year for us. However, the farmers continue to give millions of pounds of produce every year. Last year, 7.5 million pounds of produce donated to Food Share. I want to throw a little shameless plug here for Food Share and ask that the farmers consider, even though it's a bad year, those other 25,000 individuals that Food Share has not reached yet, and that they give even more this year of the produce that they produce. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity, the proclamation, and the recognition for Food Share, Bonnie, and all of her partners.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say, Bonnie mentioned that there is something special going on here in Ventura County. That special thing wouldn't be going on if it wasn't for the right organization, the right people coming together to make it happen. So Ventura County has the potential to do that, but it's actually been turned into action with Food Share. And that goes all the way back to Bonnie's predecessors who pulled it together, but right now we have to really thank the board and Bonnie for the personal style that they bring to it that's really making it a place that everybody can pull together. Not all organizations pull it off. So congratulations for making it a special food.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I'm going to leave you one last word of hope and excitement. You all are very familiar with Ventura County Together. In this last couple of months, after 5 years, we've all agreed that we can figure out how to provide the basic needs and cover the gap, but also really work to alleviate and find real solutions towards self-sufficiency. And so you now have over 46 individual large nonprofits around basic needs holding hands saying we will figure this out with our public sector, our municipalities, our education system, our employment system, our business community, and everybody has come together. And we're getting a little bit of help on the national level with Feeding America and the Urban Institute. So more good things to come. So thank you so much again. Thank you so much, Chairman, for allowing us to do this.
I do also want to just thank you. You have really led the way in being able to get so many good partnerships going, and it is something that we have the local farmland there, and now that you can tap into that to get over 7 million pounds a year, I mean, that is just wonderful, and really appreciate that ability to reach out there and do more. And also just Melissa coming to my office, good timing. We're going to be able to, with our senior summit coming up, have a special drawing for those people who bring cans of food for Food Share, and just every way we can try to do our best to see that we can help keep your shelves full so we don't have these people hungry. Thank you so much for your good work.
Mr. Chairman, Bonnie, real quick on the senior tsunami, I want to thank you for that too. I think it's extremely important. That's important that we feed our seniors. And you see what Mr. Foy looks like, but I'm not just kidding. But anyway, I think it's important that we take care of our seniors, and thank you for that excellent work.
You're welcome.
And I see a lot of the children too that are being taken care of too. So from the children to seniors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just got to say, it's always great when you come, and also the great people that are involved, but this is people seeing a need, coming together, not asking government, not asking anybody else, but we care about people, and we're going to solve this issue. And then we get the opportunity for government to play a role in that, and everybody together solving it, because you know what? It's people caring about people, and that's what I think you guys do, and you guys do a tremendous job. So thank you so much. Thanks to farmers. Thanks for everybody being involved, and thanks for keeping those pictures of us when we're younger. That was always good. Why don't we take a quick little picture of this, and then we'll, you want to bring your whole crew up?
Yeah, and please,
come on,
we
bring them all
love
down.
the big family picture.
There's evidence that we're older, though. Come on down.
Should we do the normal?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Yes, we do. All of you, yeah, like a big wedding picture.
You really know.
Nice and tight and cozy.
People and children in the front.
So I'm in the front?
That's right. I agree. Great way to be in the front, too.
We'll try to keep the waterfall.
Bring your old friends back.
Does that work for you?
I think all right. You get them in the middle.
Almost as tall as Brian Miller.
Here we go.
Okay, where are we looking?
I think right. There.
I can't suck it in anymore.
That it? That's it. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for your work. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll start with our next item, which is item 30, and it's a resolution to proclaim the week of September 22nd as Fall Prevention Awareness Week. I knew there was more to it. And Dr. Duncan is here. He has a couple of PowerPoints, but I'd like to read some highlights of the reso and then invite and thank Dr. Duncan for being here to bring this work of the coalition to our attention. Fall Prevention Awareness Week is important because nearly 12% of Ventura County citizens, over 97,000 people, are 65 years of age or older. And it's estimated that 1/3 of the adults over the age of 65 and 50% of adults over the age of 80 will fall each year. Of course, the result of that is cost to us both in hospitalization, to the injured, family visits and family concerns with that. In the past, older adults in Ventura County suffered injuries from a fall, and some of the falls were great enough to result in hospitalization. And a fall and the fear of falling can lead to depression, isolation, diminished mobility, and the loss of functional independence. Falls composed of multiple contributing factors, including their lack of strength in the lower extremities, use of multiple medications, reduced vision, chronic health problems, unsafe environments. At the state level, Fall Prevention Awareness Week was passed by the Senate and the Assembly to call attention to our seniors who are both need to be informed and educated and assisted and do many things that we can for fall prevention with educational outreach and activities related to fall prevention. So it is appropriate to recognize this, the accomplishments of our trauma practitioners, EMS, fire departments, public health, and agencies who work to designate this week, but to again reach out to the greater community to assist with the information and with ways that prevention of falls can and should take place. So there's going to be an awareness seminar at our Ventura County Medical Center on Friday, September 27th from 12 to 4 at the Academic Family Medicine Center. So I'll turn this over now to Dr. Duncan, who's going to further give us information on this very important subject. Thank you, Dr. Duncan.
All right, thank you very much, and good morning to the board, Mike Powers. Thank you very much for this honor and privilege of the podium. First and foremost, I'd like to invite all those who have been involved in this project with me to come up, please, and back me up, so to speak.
We understood why Barry moved over to that part of the healthcare system, and you could keep track of him. He's fallen a lot of times, and that's what happened to, you know. And
we have tabs on him.
Exactly, that's what I thought, yeah.
Well, this week is important because California is one of 47 states that has declared the Fall Awareness Week. And each year we have a logo or a motto. And this year's is preventing falls one step at a time. Now, why make all the fuss about falls? What is the big problem? Well, every half an hour an adult falls or dies from a fall. And an older adult is defined as anyone over the age of 65, according to the American College of Surgeons Committee on Trauma. And in the emergency department, every 15 seconds, an older adult is treated for a fall-related injury. And these are big, astounding numbers. According to the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control, falls are the #1 cause of unintentional injury or death, as well as injury in the hospital, reasons for admission. Now, 65% of these falls occur in homes, hence the reason for us targeting homes as an area where we can improve on to decrease the number of falls. 1 in 3 adults over the age of 65 will fall each year. In addition, 1 in every 2 adults over the age of 80 will fall each year. And I was reminded of this by being on call last night when I had a 91-year-old lady who fell out of bed. Unfortunately, she didn't have bad injuries enough for her to either go to surgery, but had other medical issues that needed to be addressed. Now, what are the consequences of falls? Well, if you think about it, you fall, you break your hip, you either have surgery or are bedbound, you may develop ulcers or bed sores, you become isolated, you may have to go to surgery multiple times to get your wounds cleaned out, and subsequently leads to depression and isolation. So it changes your quality of life altogether. And I had a grandmother who fell about 15 years ago, and she was in her 90s, admittedly, but she fell and broke her hip, and the same thing happened to her, and eventually she died of it because she wasn't able to get up and about, and she lost the quality of life that she was used to.
Dr. Duncan, I had heard a statistic about the percentage of people who end up dying as a result of their fall, and it was very high. I don't know if you know that. It was something like 25 to 50% of those who have a fall end up either getting pneumonia and then dying. It's just a shocking statistic.
Correct. Yeah, the number is outstanding, hence our efforts to try to prevent these falls. And for the most part, falls are preventable. Not all of them are, but most of them are preventable. So it behooves us as healthcare professionals to address the falls as best as we can to decrease the numbers. Now, we can boast in California that we have the highest number of elderly in the nation. We have 4.2 million elderly individuals in our state, and California, as well as the world, or rather Ventura County as well as the world, mirror each other in regards to the percentages of those over the age of 65. So the percentages are about 11 to 12%, but the astounding number that I want to point out here is the fact that in 2050, that number will go from 11% to 20%. So we're going from 65 million to 2.5 billion. And in going up with those numbers, you can imagine the number of falls or occurrences that will occur if nothing is done in regards to decreasing these falls. In regards to dollars and cents, California alone spends at least $2.4 million annually in regards to non-fatal falls. In addition to that, any hospitalization from a fall can range anywhere from $37,000 to $60,000. And the U.S. healthcare system spent $19 billion on falls in the year 2000, and that number rose by about $10 billion in 2010. Now, going forward to 2020, that number is projected to rise to $60 billion. So if we don't do anything about falls, we certainly will pay for it one way or the other. As a result of falls, at the Senate level, Mike Enzi passed a Safety Seniors Act in 2007 that encourages public access to fall programs as well as research and development. At the state level, Mr. Lowenthal, who is a congressman from the 47th District of California, passed a law in 2008 declaring this week, meaning the first week of fall, as Fall Prevention Awareness Week. Just as you mentioned, Ms. Long, we have the Elderly Fall Awareness Seminar on Friday, September 17th from noon to 4 p.m. And it's going to be at the Ventura County Medical Center in the auditorium. Now, we have a multitude of speakers ranging from the fire department to the EMS to the trauma center representatives. We also have pharmacists, physical therapists, as well as nurses available to do blood pressure checks, vision checks, and physical strength checks. So we'd like people in the community to come out to take advantage of it. It's free, and we have food available, and it's one way that we can connect and raise awareness in the community. So this effort has brought together a collaboration of different agencies, and without these individuals, we wouldn't be here today. So I'd like to mention the different agencies involved, such as the EMS, Public Health, the Ventura County Fire, which includes the City Fire Department of Ventura, Oxnard Fire, AMR/Gold Coast, Lifeline, Ventura County Area Agency on Aging, or VCAAA, Assisted Home Health, and Livingston Memorial. So here are my references, and I'll be glad to take any questions. And I really appreciate you doing this for us. It means a lot. Thank you very much.
Dr. Duncan, I just want to thank you and the whole team for this. Is just unbelievable the amount of people that get hurt, by falls. So I thank you again and the whole team, for bringing this information to us, so we can share that with the public. Thank you so much. And who do you have? Yeah, that's right.
Rico Vargas, the Ventura County Public Health Director.
Lauren Plott, Ventura County Fire Department.
Jeff Luther, Lifeline Medical Transport.
Michael Nolan, Emergency Room Nurse. Sandy Morse, Livingston Memorial Visiting Nurses. Elizabeth Renteria with the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging.
And Dr. Duncan, can I just ask you to take this opportunity to give us the 2 or 3 best things that seniors and people, so we have quite a few people that listen to this, in their workspace and stuff, that they could take home to their elderly parents or whatever, 2 or 3 best things that people should do to try to prevent falls?
Well, I think they need to be aware of the fact that if they have any vision problems, that they need to be addressed. Either little things like cataracts can be addressed pretty straightforwardly. At nighttime, lighting is very critical. If you don't have enough lighting in your homes, it could lead to falls. Rugs that are not straightened out or loose rugs are very important in terms of falling. I recently visited my parents who are 80 and 72, and I made sure their rugs are nicely taped down so that we wouldn't have any falls.
Great. Thank you.
Let me just ask you also, I go into the gym daily and I see some people come in that are a little bit older and they walk, and then all of a sudden they get into programs, start strengthening their legs and strengthening. that all of a sudden now they're just walking a whole different way. Is that part of the issue, kind of, if you don't use it, you lose it, in the sense that?
It is. It's part of it. I think strengthening exercises help to go a long way, because once you start losing your strength, or once you become osteoporotic, or you lose a lot of calcium and your bones don't work as well, and you get arthritis, then you end up falling more so than often.
Yeah.
And it all segues.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because when you just said that rug thing that you were talking about, a lot of us catch the edge of a rug and we trip and we put our foot out and we're strong enough to hold ourselves up. But if you get to the point where you're not as strong, because I realized that when I replaced my knees, they weren't as strong, and all of a sudden it's a lot easier when your legs aren't quite as strong to do that, and you have to go back to that strengthening. And I think a lot of people, too much time sitting, but you can get it back. I've seen them come in sometimes on a cane or walkers. A month and a half later, that's gone, and they're just going in and going on the treadmills and doing all the stuff. So,
there's several exercise programs, especially Tai Chi has been known to bring back your strength.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. That's
correct.
It's such valuable information, and maybe you could video the seminar and be able to get it on our government channels. That's just great information to have out there.
Sure.
And part of the senior summit.
The senior summit, yeah.
Right.
It's great to see AAA folks here. Thank you for being here and for carrying this message. And Dr. Duncan, thank you for your leadership on this, and all of you for knowing that this is important in our community to help our seniors to have a quality of life by helping them to feel more comfortable about their mobility and their ability to make their home safe. So thank you so much. And we'll take a picture. You want to move over this way?
I think Mr. Powers has something to say.
Thank you. Chair, just real quick, most people, when they think of a trauma program, they think of sort of being reactive and fixing problems after the fact. And what I like about this team, and Dr. Duncan and Dr. Romero, the co-chief of trauma back there, and Cindy and the whole team, is that they take the lessons learned on the back end and they bring it to a prevention format like this to raise awareness. It's incredibly effective and innovative. So thank you.
So, Cindy, we can work and make sure he's not falling anymore out there? Okay, that's good. All right. Keep his hair short. It's easier to fix the wounds that way.
Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Only because we love you, Barry.
Thank you, Doctor.
I guess we're past 10:30. We probably go to our 10:30 and then forget that. Oh, well, how quick can you go? You have something exciting? 10 minutes? You got something exciting to tell us? No. Oh. All right, come on.
No, we got it.
Chairman Foy, members of the board, Mr. Powers. I am Stephen Hintz, Ventura County's Treasurer Tax Collector. I am calendared today to deliver an investment report to you, but before I get there, there are a couple of other matters that I'd like to mention to you. We had a successful auction last Friday. We sold 4 properties at public auction and 4 at sealed bid and recouped $135,500 in property taxes, including all the fees and costs associated with running the auction. So that was a successful auction, leavened, of course, by the understanding that once upon a time each of these properties was somebody's dream, and they wound up letting it go for the taxes. But still, from our interests as a revenue stream for the county, it's a significant effort.
If I can ask you, I think since I've been here, it's probably the first time we've done that. Was it just we tried to contact people, they couldn't come up, they didn't want to move forward? What was the deal?
We did an auction last year, which was the first one for several years.
That was the first, okay, yeah.
Yes, the minute on July 1st of every year, about 500 or 600, about 2,500 properties remain unpaid, and from that point forward, we act like a collection agency, contacting the record owners, any lien holders that we can find, and encouraging them to set up plans and whatever. And by the time we get to the board's authorization to sell, which is usually during February or March, we are down to about 200 properties, and then by the day of the auction, as I mentioned, we were down to a total of 8. The people who do the collections on these delinquent properties are very effective without being cruel, like the ones who call you all night, every night. But that isn't the way we do business.
But I guess my thing at the end is everybody's given a chance to get this cleared up so they don't lose that dream you talked about.
Definitely, and we also collected $65,000 in excess proceeds, which eventually will go back to the record owners. So many of them didn't lose their property just for the taxes. They'll get some money back.
Well, I appreciate that. So if all of a sudden we had a $40,000 owed and we sold it for 70, that 30,000 that we don't keep, that goes back to that owner.
That's
so
correct.
That people know. Okay, great.
That's correct.
Wonderful.
In addition, I want to remind you again, in case many of our listeners on the ships at sea have not picked us up, that we'll be at the Moore Park Country Days Street Fair on the 5th of October and the Thousand Oaks Street Fair on the 20th of October, and we'll be prepared at each of those to take payments. Which brings me to the next point, which is that secured bills for the current fiscal year will be in the mail around the 7th of October. The bills can be viewed right now on the Treasurer Tax Collector website, so that anybody who wanted to print their bill and mail it in with a check now could. And the online payment operation will be available early next week. If there are no other questions about general Treasurer Tax Collector news, I'll turn to the investment report. And surely, Chairman Foy, I know that you were just about to ask me, weren't you just here? And I was. We have decided that even with the time limits of getting our report into the SIRE system, we can gain 2 weeks of timing on this. So instead of getting a report that ended, in this case, on August 31st, and reading the report here at this meeting in the second week of October, we have been able to move it to the last meeting in September, or close to the last meeting in September, and we expect to maintain that same time frame so that from now on your investor reports are at least a couple of weeks more current.
That means we're making more money, right?
No. It just means that it's more current. You get the news sooner, whatever it is. Our report shows that the portfolio yield for August was the same as it was for July, 48 basis points. We remain short-term. The Federal Open Market Committee confounded virtually all of the experts by saying definitively that they don't intend to taper off on their purchases of federal agency and Treasury notes, which virtually all of the experts had predicted that they would. They didn't. So interest rates on the kinds of things that we buy will remain low for at least a few months. And the reported favorite to be the replacement for Chairman Bernanke apparently shares his views. So I'm feeling that the good news is that mortgages will not rise dramatically, but so far as we're concerned, neither will the yield out of the investment pool. Right now, in fact, all of our yield is being driven by the medium-term corporate notes that we bought over the last 9 months. And we are, of course, limited out on those now. We added a 5th broker-dealer on her promise that her firm, Raymond James, would provide us with a steady stream of offers regarding California-based municipal bonds, which provide pretty good yield for government instruments. And in fact, while I've been in the audience, we nailed down a pretty good deal on some UC Regents bonds that will pay about 38 basis points per year over a 1.5-year period. This points out one of the problems that we have. We have reinvestment risk. That is, things that mature, and we don't have anything really good to buy at this point. I've told you before, if I had the whole portfolio come mature and reinvest, our yield would drop dramatically into the 35 to 40 basis points range. So we're happy to have some longer-term yielding instruments. The only thing I want to suggest to you is on Exhibit 4, which is the pie chart of portfolio holdings by class. You may expect that the next report will show an increase of to 3.5% in the pools and perhaps 3 to 5% in the munis, and that the blue federal agency piece of the pie will shrink by a similar amount. Otherwise, no significant differences in investment are expected. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, either about treasurer, tax collector business, or about the investment pool.
Anything?
So do you, I laud you for looking at more ways to help our residents be able to pay their taxes in terms of not having to drive to the government center. And I'll be interested to see if people want to pay their taxes while they're going to a street fair, but it's innovative.
Well, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, we'll be prepared to print their bill for them, let them look at it, talk to us about how to go about it. We'll be able to take online payments there, credit card payments. We'll see. I mean, it's a test, and it helps us practice to get ready for what we hope will be a more traditional on-site payment program somewhere in the east end of the county during the spring collection period.
You might want to bring a bowl of licorice or something.
Well, you know, there were 2 lines of thought of that. My predecessor gave away candy during the heavy collection periods, and then he got attacked for giving away candy at the public expense, and no amount of explaining that he'd bought it himself out of his own pocket seemed to relieve the public's distaste about the idea of paying for candy to be given to other people. So I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe we'll give away Mr. Powers' business cards.
Yeah, just something to something to buffer the Scrooge at the street fair.
Well, we're going to be standing next to the clerk recorder at both events, so maybe Mr. Lunn and I can do some kind of song and dance routine for the people.
You know, but I watched those people take that candy out of your predecessor's hand. They didn't have any problem with that.
Yeah, it seemed to be okay. The ones who got it did.
Okay, so we have information. Appreciate that, sir, and hopefully one day you'll come and say it's going the other way. But I guess at that point, the government's going to pay more money for all the money they borrowed, too, at that point. So,
Mr. Dursey and I did talk about that today, about whether it might be time to get the county into a refinancing program.
Yeah, at that point, at the lowest. We can save. The courts are asking us anything we can do to help save some money over there, too. So
We are looking at that.
that's what I told them, that you have some ideas for them. So, okay. Do we have a motion? It passed and we're done. Boy, we're so quick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just mesmerized by his comments. So, all right, we are at 10:30. On to our Supervisor Long, our
Yes,
National
thank
Breast
you.
Cancer.
It is my pleasure again this year to bring this forward. 2013 marks the 29th year that National Breast Cancer Awareness Month has taken place, and I'd invite up to our podium Monica Moretta, who's our ACS Director of Special Events, and Bernie Glenn, who's co-chair of our Strides Planning Committee, along with her co-chair, Lauren Bianchi-Clemens. And this is all for, I'm going to talk first about the upcoming event, which is, I've mentioned this to the board already, and that's our Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, the non-competitive 5K walk. It will take place on October 12th at the Ventura Harbor, and it is full underway for those of you who wish to participate, support, and we have Pinkettes and the Striders, the team that I'm on. And our goal is to raise $70,000, 70 teams. Flagship sponsors include VCHCA, Limonera, Jersey Mike's, Palm Imaging, Amgen, Coastal Radiation Oncology, Ventura County Star, other sponsors. And this is a way to both raise awareness and raise funds to support this Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. So that's my first plug, and I wanted to also make a note that I heard from Chief Mark Lorenzen, and October is going to be recognized as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the Ventura County Fire Department is going to help to raise awareness with this during the month of October by changing their blue fire department T-shirts to pink. Which will be fun. And so I was very pleased that he sent me this note, and we sent back to him an invitation to participate in our strides. So continuing to do the outreach. It is another part of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is also the 100th year of the American Cancer Society, who has just been the national leader in raising awareness about research and information and lifestyles to really combat the horrible disease of cancer that strikes many of us, men and women, in all different levels. But as October has been declared National Breast Cancer Month, it is again to educate men and women about prevention, early breast cancer detection, diagnosis, and treatment. It impacts lives of many Americans, either directly or through the diagnosis of a family member or friend. And all of you know I am a survivor, and every year am proud to be very engaged with this. Because I think by speaking out and speaking up and reaching out to our community, we can really help to combat and eliminate the causes and tragedy of both breast cancer, as we also heard this morning from one of our speakers. More than 22,000 women and men in California, of which 545 reside in Ventura County, will develop breast cancer. Clinical exams, mammograms, most effective way. We know it's convincing evidence that early detection and prevention will certainly help in the early stages of breast cancer. The American Cancer Society, National Cancer Institute, United States Prevention Services Task Force agree that regular mammographies can greatly reduce the risk of dying for breast cancer. So October 18th to 20 of this year is National Mammography Day. It's a day that we really reach out to have women mark it on your calendar and make that your annual day to get mammography, make an appointment and have your mammography. Other things to reduce the risk of breast cancer is by not smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, which I work on daily, eating a well-balanced diet, engaging in physical activity, which I work on daily, at least 60 minutes on 5 or more days a week, which is a real challenge, and limiting alcohol consumption, which I work on daily. It's important for all Americans to raise awareness. Talk with your family members, your friends about screening and early detection, and improve the ability to prevent, detect, treat, and ultimately cure breast cancer. So now I'm going to turn this over to, just by closing with 100 years ago, the American Cancer Society began the fight of a lifetime, the fight against cancer, and now it's time to join together to finish that fight, and these great people right here are going to lead us in that, in both this awareness of this month and the strides. Please.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Bernadette Glenn, but everybody calls me Bernie. Dad wanted a boy. Surprise. I'm a 12-year stage 3 breast cancer survivor. Misty Romero, she is a 3-time cancer survivor of 15 years. I am also the co-chair of Making Strides Against Breast Cancer and walk along with Lauren Bianchi Kleiman, wonderful young lady. On behalf of our patients, survivors, and planning committee, we would like to thank Supervisor Long and the board supervisors for their wonderful proclamation. 1 of every 2 women newly diagnosed with breast cancer reaches out to the American Cancer Society for support, as well as myself. Through Making Strides, we are able to raise funds and awareness for patients right here in our own county. The Society provides patients with rides to their treatments for free. The Society provides hats, wigs, scarves to patients due to hair loss from chemo. The Society conducts monthly Look Good, Feel Better, and Reach to Recovery sessions for patients undergoing treatment. All of these services are free to all patients. We would like to thank the board for their support of our cancer prevention study led by Supervisor Long. Because of your support, we're able to enroll hundreds of county residents into this research study, which is still continuing today. Thank you all for helping us to raise awareness and let the public know that we are here to help them through their cancer diagnosis. My mother's a 1-year stage 1 early stage survivor. She did the walk last year. She's 83 years old. I don't want to hear no. At that note, I would like to invite all of you to please come out October 12th at the Cove, 8 o'clock in the morning. That's okay. Chickens are up. But I would like you to either form a team or show your support or bring you can join my team too, or bring survivors. Bring them out. Even if they can't walk, they could be our cheering section. We're there to show them that this is a beatable cancer. We're there to show them that there is hope. And yes, men do wear pink. It's okay. If the firemen can do it, I think you can do it. But I would love, love to have all of you there and show our county, look, we're all in it. And there's a phrase that we do use, we're all in it to win it. And happy birthday to the American Cancer Society. I thank them. I wouldn't be here. I hope to see you there.
Thank you. Real quick, board members, thank you for mentioning the study. We should be proud because the sites we sponsored, we had full houses at them, and it really helped to reach the goal of enrollment in this county. So thank you for mentioning that, Bernie.
Hey, you always say you want to get something done, you get the women to do it, right? Where would you ever get National Football League to be wearing pink, firemen to be wearing pink, and Mr. Powers to be wearing pink on this? He is prepared. He is prepared. So congratulations, yes. Thank you.
Next year, I'll see you all in pink when I come back.
Oh, there's a challenge now. It was non-competitive, I thought I heard earlier.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank you, too, because I participate in the Oxnard Relay for Life over at Oxnard High School every year. So, and I want to thank you for the good work that you do every single year. So, thank you. Mm-hmm.
And Lauren's been doing a great job, too, getting the word out there, getting the teammates going. Supervisor Long, you look great in pink with your bling and all.
When Supervisor Long tells us she's working on her alcohol hourly, I'm going to be concerned. Right? You know? Daily was enough.
I know some people say it's 11 o'clock somewhere, right? So we'll take a quick break. It says here you got 10 minutes? You can do it in 10?
Depends upon how many comments and questions there are.
here we go. Since the auditor's ready, we're ready to go.
Great. Well, good morning, Chair Foy, Supervisors, Mr. Powers. For the record, again, I'm Dave Fleisch with the Public Works Agency Transportation Department. The item before you today is to present and open a public hearing on the proposed wireless telecommunication facility ordinance in the public road right-of-way. Before I start, I'm going to talk a little bit later about the journey we've been on to get to today, but I would like to thank two people in particular from the county staff who have really done the major up and down lifting and legwork on this, and that would be Tom Temple from the County Counsel's Office and Anita Ballin from my staff. I'm just up here talking. They're actually the ones who did the slogging through the mud to get us to where we are now. So I really appreciate all of their effort to get us to where we are.
Hey, Dave, let me just say, I know you said it, but this will be a public hearing. We'll open a public hearing for this. So, yeah.
Very briefly, what I'll cover today, just an overview of where we are with the ordinance, the timeline, what input we have received and responded to, and then some key features of the ordinance. As your board is aware, we have had increased requests for wireless telecommunication facilities in the road right-of-way. Since October of 2011, we've had 24 permit requests, numbers up from when I was here a few months ago to tell you about it. And we expect that to continue. Obviously, with the use of cellular wireless devices that is increasing, that there's a need for that, not only in the right-of-way but elsewhere. In drafting the ordinance, one of the things that we found was there was not a lot out there, so we started with what existing ordinances we could find from other public entities within the state of California. We looked at case law, actually I should say our attorneys looked at case law, and we incorporated the feedback that we got from the wireless providers, the county staff, and the public. It's been a lengthy process, and I'm going to just address that as we move on here. Speaking of, we started back in February of last year, presentation to your board about the increased number of requests we were getting, and at that time your board directed us to put together an ordinance and bring that to you for your consideration. We had that first draft of that done in November. Between November and April, we had several go-arounds back and forth with both the public and the wireless companies, and we brought that to your board in May. At that time, you gave us direction to go back and consider some issues and take a look at some things that were less than clear in the ordinance. And we've spent some time between now and then, several iterations and discussions with county staff, the wireless providers, and the public. And I believe we're at the point now where we've addressed the majority of those issues, and that we have a product in front of you that reflects what our desires are in terms of maintaining an understanding of the safety control of what's in the road right-of-way, but also understanding the needs of the companies and that need to be in the right-of-way and the sensitivities that the public has. We've received input from multiple sources. From the community, we got from the municipal advisory councils and many property owner associations, particularly the three you see up there. The primary issues that they had when we presented this to them had to deal with notification. When were they going to get notified? When would they have the ability to look at what it was that was being proposed in the area? There were some issues with respect to aesthetics, but primarily it was the notification. And we responded to that by increasing the notification time in the ordinance so that a municipal advisory council or property owners association would have a 30-day period to call a meeting to be able to understand or review and discuss the things that were to be presented. In addition, we've had numerous dialogue with the wireless companies, primarily Verizon, AT&T, and Crown Castle. We've got a number of verbal and written inputs. Your board received a couple of letters from them in June and July, and also one just recently, last Friday, that was attached to the board to you today. And we systematically addressed most of the concerns that they had, to the point that I think we've come to agreement on those that we can come to agreement on, and there are some that we have differences of opinion, but they're not anything that would prevent us from moving forward with the ordinance. At the May 7th meeting, your board directed us to make sure that we considered not just the wireless companies, but any public utility that would be in the road right-of-way that would be using wireless devices, and that they be included in the ordinance, whoever that may be, not just the wireless providers themselves. And so we made an adjustment to the definitions in the ordinance of who it pertains to, and included that. We got some input fairly late on from Southern Cal Gas, and our county council has been working those issues. We believe that we've not made any of the changes. We made a few changes, but we've not made a number of the changes that they asked for, because we believe that the provisions that are currently in the ordinance cover the concerns that the gas company has. And I believe that they have some representatives here who may be interested in speaking to that. Just to go through a couple of the key features, when we previously presented this in May, there was some confusion or lack of clarity in the ordinance as to exactly what was being installed and what was it called and what did it look like and what the definitions were, and also what did that mean to the wireless companies and to the public in terms of the review and notification. So we spent substantial time reviewing and trying to provide that information in the ordinance in a succinct manner, but also in a manner that's very clear for not only the public but the wireless companies to be able to understand. And essentially there's, in order of preference, not that we require them, if you can't do this, then you have to do this, but in our order of preference, there's essentially 4 levels of installation. A small cell, which they can explain the technical details of that to you far better than I can. A cluster or a co-location, either in a residential or non-residential area. A single installation by itself on an existing pole, or a new installation. And what those really relate to is the documents that we require and the level of review it gets. And essentially there's 3 levels of review. We have provided in the ordinance this chart. It doesn't have the colors that I put on here. This was for sake of clarity in this discussion, but this chart is actually in the ordinance. And essentially what you see here are the 3 levels of review that we would that will be taken depending upon what type of installation it is. The basic review would either be the small cell or a co-location in a non-residential area, and you see that's a fairly limited review, primarily on the details of the installation, a traffic control plan, what licenses they have and so forth, and that just essentially the basics that we would need to approve it. The more intermediate review is essentially in a residential area, and we have that expectation with the need for a little bit further review and documentation from a visual impact analysis, and that we have authorization if we needed to hire an expert to look at the technical side of what they're proposing there, all the way to a full installation, which would either be a substantial increase in size or a new installation where we would do a full review. What this does is it encourages, obviously, with the lower review at the small cell or the co-locations without substantial increase, it encourages those from the review perspective, but we're certainly available to look at any type of installation that they feel that they need. One of the other key issues when we were before you in May was addressing the issue of height. There was concerns both from the public and the wireless companies about our height provisions in the ordinance, and we've re-looked at those and adjusted those. Essentially, what you see up here are the provisions in an area where there are existing utility poles. They have to be 5 feet or less more than 5 feet or less taller than the average height of the poles in that area. If it's in an area where there are not utility poles, or whether they're choosing to use a traffic pole, either a traffic signal or a light pole, it can't be taller than 5 feet of those as well. And then we have 2 specific area plans that we have, both for Thousand Oaks and Ojai, and we say that they must meet the limitations of those plans as well. One of the discussions we had with the wireless companies, and that's the one exception you have to the height limits here, is there are certain technical provisions. If the antenna is going to be mounted on a pole that has power lines on it, there has to be certain separation between the power lines and the antenna from a safety perspective. Should that be needed and they be required to, say, have an 8 foot instead of 5 foot above the height of the pole, that would take precedence over this. And we have a sample picture I'll show you here of what a pole extension looks like that would allow them to do that. And from an aesthetic perspective, it's not unpleasing, so it would make sense to be able to do that. One of the other key issues that we addressed that was a concern both to your board, the public, and the wireless companies was the appeal process. And we've refined that appeal process so that essentially the appeal, since I issue the permits or my department does, an appeal would go to the road commissioner, that's the Public Works Agency director, and that's essentially where the appeal stopped. There's no further appeal to your board or anyone else. And the appeals are allowed both by the public and by the permittee, but in order for the public to appeal, they have to demonstrate that they're impacted by the installation, which means they need to be in the notification zone that we've defined within the ordinance that's 500 feet by 300 feet. And in either case, whether it's the applicant or a property owner, the appeal must demonstrate how it doesn't comply with the ordinance. They can't just appeal and say, we don't like this. It has to demonstrate that we didn't follow the provisions of our ordinance. Finally, in the public notification, and most of this is not significantly different from what we presented to you in May. We have the notification zone that we've identified. If an installation is either a new installation, a co-location in a residential area, or any co-location with a substantial increase in size, there's a public notification requirement prior to the approval of the ordinance, or the permit, I'm sorry, prior to approval of the permit. In the coastal zone, it's not required because it's already been done when they've received the coastal permit. And one of the provisions that we did adjust in here is if it's in the coastal area, we have a coastal zoning ordinance, they're required to get a permit to be in the coastal zone before they get a permit from us to encroach in the road right-of-way. Since the notification's already been done there, we're not going to require that twice. And essentially that notification is 14 days within 14 days after they've been notified that the permit's been pre-approved. It has to be out for 30 days. There's a written notification that has certain descriptors that they have to provide of what the project is. There's also a notification sign that has to be put out as well. And the second notification after approval of the permit is 2 weeks prior to construction, and that's consistent with our existing encroachment ordinance.
Steve, Dave, they were all okay with that?
Yes.
No problems?
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious about time to get something up and going, so that's what works okay.
We are still, with all of the time frames that are within our ordinance, we're subject to the shot clock requirements that the FCC has for approval of permits, either 90 days or 150 days, depending upon the type of installation. And we're aware of that, and even when we do the coastal permit first before us, the shot clock applies from the day they walk in. There's not two separate clocks. So if it's 90 days, it's 90 days concurrently. And we don't think that that's an issue. We generally approve encroachment permits in a fairly short period of time. Okay. The good deal with this is there's a very set list of requirements. As long as they provide what those requirements are, we should be able to move through the process fairly quickly.
Great. Okay.
One thing I forgot to mention on the input that we've received is we had quite a bit of discussion with the county planning department and are in concurrence with what's currently in our planning and zoning ordinances and with where they're going with a non-right-of-way discretionary permit process for wireless as well. So there's going to be some differences between them, but where they need to be consistent, they are. And just to give you a couple of brief examples, this is what a pole top extension looks like. Again, if they were to have to put an extender on a pole to get the antenna above those wires, it's not an enormous thing. It's essentially a metal extension that goes on with the antenna above it. This is actually on Santa Rosa Road. This is an installation that has been done of a vault and the antenna. You see the antenna on your right-hand side, and you actually see, it's hard to see, but you can see the vault in the foreground in the background of the top picture there. Once it's installed, they redid the landscaping, and then there's there's some appurtenances that are above it, but you can see it's not an unpleasing look. And then finally, a small cell installation is essentially a small device that's installed on a pole. And again, if you have technical questions on that, that's beyond my capability to answer. So, pending your questions and comments from the public.
Very quick. That's good. Okay. That was our presentation. Do you have any board questions, comments at all? I do have two speakers. Would you rather hear the speakers first? Okay. We have three speakers. All right, so I'm going to ask Albert Garcia to come up first.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Albert Garcia. I'm in-house counsel for Southern California Gas Company. Southern California Gas Company has existing franchise agreement with the county that authorizes SoCalGas to install its pipelines, facilities, and appurtenances within the county right-of-way. Because of this, SoCalGas believes that it has a pre-existing contractual right to undertake its automated metering installations subject to existing ministerial permits. Consequently, Southern California Gas Company does not believe that it needs special wireless telecom permits and shouldn't be included within the proposed wireless telecommunications ordinance as it's currently being contemplated. While we appreciate that to date, the county has assured SoCalGas that the proposed wireless ordinance is ministerial in nature and not discretionary, we nonetheless are greatly concerned that some of the sections of the ordinance as applied may serve as a de facto barrier to the installation of our AMI facilities. For example, Section 12809 limits our installation periods to a 10-year term, and that's inconsistent with our franchise rights. Further, Section 12806D5 requires painting or design changes that may not be compatible with our system. Our system is designed to work across our service territory and has been accepted by over 100 cities and counties and with over 1,500 AMI facilities installed within our service territory to date. We simply can't redesign the system specifically for each jurisdiction. We believe that these de facto barriers to installation are contrary to and not only our contract rights under the franchise, but California state law in general. It is well established that California law precludes a county from implementing ordinances which in effect unilaterally change the terms of a franchise contract. And we, SoCalGas, are concerned that this will happen here if the ordinance is passed as proposed. Further, the CPUC regulates general design and construction of utility facilities, and while understanding that local jurisdictions retain forms of time, place, and manner restrictions pursuant to their police powers, but those powers, as implemented, cannot go so far as to serve as a barrier to construct when the utility can show that county requirements are either impracticable or infeasible. Because of this, we want to avoid being on a collision course. We want to work with the county. We understand that other telecommunication companies have worked with the county and have provided valuable input. This is understandable given that the ordinance was originally drafted with them in mind. SoCalGas was unfortunately included almost as an afterthought to the ordinance. We have provided County Council with comments and proposed revisions to the ordinance. We are willing to work with the county in a way that results in the county being able to exercise its police powers in ways that do not violate SoCalGas's contractual rights under the franchise or are otherwise in violation of the paramount authority of the CPUC. We urge that you take us up on this offer and incorporate our proposed changes into the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Dan Rivetto.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dan Rivetto, and I'm representing AT&T. We appreciate the cooperative efforts with which the county has worked with us in this endeavor over these many, many months. But as you know, technology changes rapidly, and we require flexibility and cooperation as we move forward with the implementation. And so we look forward to continuing our productive and positive working relationship with the county as we move forward with any implementation issues that may arise in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul O'Boyle.
Honorable Chair, members of the board, my name is Paul O'Boyle. I'm an attorney representing Crown Castle. And the first thing I'd like to say is I really want to appreciate the time that the county has given us, especially the staff, Anita and Dave. They really did go above and beyond. It was a it was a matter of attrition on both sides, I believe. But I think at this point, we've kind of gotten to the point where the ordinance is something that we can live with. It's not perfect by any stretch of imagination. Two issues that we differed with county staff was on the issue of replacement poles. We feel that replacement poles, so long as they do not significantly increase the size of the pole, should be allowed administratively. One of Dave's concerns was that if you allow a pole of a larger diameter, it may impact the right-of-way. And that is obviously within the purview of the county to control and regulate. And if staff ever felt that was the case, they could deny the permit for that. There's no need to put a limit on the size of the pole. But again, that's one thing we differ on. And then the other issue was in regard to assignment. We feel as though that the county does not want to be in the position of authorizing any type of assignment. You imagine these big telephone companies buying each other out. We don't think the county really wants to be in the middle of that. And we recommended that the county be put on notice any transfer of a majority share of this as opposed to consent. The issue, what I've heard from county staff was the permits are personal. We disagree with that analysis. We believe that the permit runs with the land. A good analogy was if I came in for a street tree, I sell my house. Well, in that tree, I find it hard to believe the county wouldn't want that tree to be permitted. The way it's being explained to me, it would not be a legal permit because it's personal to me unless I sign it over. So again, I don't think the county wants to get involved with that. Other than that, it was a trying effort, well worth it, and I do think that the county is addressing the aesthetic concerns of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that.
Is the last one?
I think that's our last speaker.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I wanted to ask either Tom or Dave, that regarding Southern California gases, their concerns. Under the ordinance, I think it's E1, evidence of infeasibility of an installation of, if the compliance of this section is not feasible. Can you share that? Can you add more to that, either Tom or Dave? Because I think
I'll
maybe
let the
that
legal guy speak.
might help Albert Garcia and the rest of the.
Yes, the section you're talking about is in section 12806, and it is E1, and that's an exemption that was asked for by the wireless companies to essentially accommodate a situation where, for some reason or another, the ordinance could not be complied with, in its black letter terms. So the wording is infeasibility. So if the company or the permittee wants to install a facility and it would simply be infeasible to comply with every single term of the ordinance, then this section allows the applicant to demonstrate how it is that the ordinance would be infeasible to comply with in this particular circumstance. They have to provide additional analysis and evidence in support of that claim, and then at that point, Dave, essentially the director of the transportation department, would be able to grant the permit nonetheless.
So I think, Mr. Chair, the board members, that kind of, in my mind, solves a lot of the problems and concerns that especially Southern Gas had, and some of the other utilities. They have a way out, a little flexibility there. I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's important that, especially for Albert, to understand that.
Let me just ask a couple questions first, too. We heard the gas company talk about a 10-year term. So what are we talking about? Is that the permit's 10 years?
Correct, but they can apply for an extension of that permit. It's not that it's dead at the end of 10 years. At the end of 10 years, they have to provide evidence that it's still current technology and what they want to do, and then we'll extend the permit.
So it's not going to be in a position for these people, because I'm thinking if they're making these investments, they do all this, that those things are going to be in, it's 10 years, we're just going to roll it over in a sense if it's
Correct.
If it's still right. It's not going to be a major ordeal for them to have to go through this, is there, right, for any of these companies?
Correct. It would just be a matter of renewing the permit, essentially asking for a waiver or an extension of that 10-year time period.
And then we give them probably another 10 years, something like that? Or I guess I'm just trying to figure, if we're going to do it, and usually I don't know how long this technology lasts, because they may be doing that. I'd hate to have us go through a lot of process, them going through a lot of process.
Correct.
That we just keep doing it just to keep the same technology. But I think technology changes. But is there something there?
Right. Again, the intent behind that is to review at 10 years. Does that still need to be where it is? And if it does, and they apply for a waiver, then we give them the waiver.
Okay.
And I'm not sure it specifies that it's a specific period of time.
Is it I guess, is it a way for all of us to take a look at it at that time? Is that kind of what it is? So it just doesn't go on forever and there's a pole stuck there that maybe somebody's not using or something?
Yes, I think the intent of the 10-year term is simply to make the applicant come back and I think there's a very minimal level of review at that point. I'm trying to find the section so I could cite to it, but at that point, the same standards for issuance of the permit would still apply. There's still a ministerial permit, provided they still meet the conditions in the ordinance. They're still entitled to a renewal of the permit. So it's not an ending of their right to occupy the right-of-way. It's just an opportunity for the county to revisit that permit.
Okay. I just want to get careful that we're not just causing a lot of other work for them, a lot of work for us to go through.
We've had examples of coming up for a renewal of a CUP in my district where they found that they didn't need as high of an antenna. Technology changes.
That's what I meant, yeah, technology, yeah. And this may give us the opportunity to ask that question, can you use a different antenna or something?
Right,
Okay,
and co-location opportunities might arise.
Okay, I mean, that's reasonable. I just didn't want to make it a whole lot real expensive, real burden for both sides. For us either, have to go back and look at this thing.
Essentially what the language says is that they can ask for an extension showing that they can conformance with all conditions of the original permit. Operation is still going on as in its intended manner, and it conforms with current applicable laws and regulations. So as Mr. Rivetto said, technology changes, the laws change. At a 10-year period, we just want to make sure that something hasn't happened that causes that no longer. Say FCC comes out with some new regulation on EMF, electromagnetic frequency radiation that's changed. We need to make sure that it meets the current laws.
Right, and I think, okay, that's reasonable. Let me ask another one. That we saw the gas company talk about this redesign of their system based on what we're doing, and I was just curious, is there something different that we're
I'm a little confused at that, sir, because we're not asking them to conform to a specific look. All we're saying that it has to, from an aesthetic perspective, it just has to it has to be reasonably well shielded. We're not asking them to paint it a certain color or to have it a certain look.
That's what I thought, but I didn't understand what they were saying. I just didn't, and then because I know construction requirements, like I said, it sounds like that's done outside of our preview anyway, so.
Right.
All right. This is another one that really, it struck me though. The transfer of ownership. These companies buy and sell all the time. So I'm trying to understand that piece because we don't want to be in a position that just because Verizon buys AT&T buys, or so buys, all of a sudden they got to come back and re-permit all this stuff. What are we doing in that situation?
Sure. Our current encroachment permit ordinance, which this is a chapter of, requires the permittee is the owner of the permit. So if you were permitted for something either as an individual or as a business, and then you sell your property, that permit is no longer valid until or unless the new owner comes and applies for the permit or applies for it to be transferred.
It does not go with the ownership?
It doesn't go with the ownership?
With the purchase,
no,
yeah.
So if I'm AT&T and I buy Verizon and they have all these thousands and thousands of sites, I got to go back and re-permit all these sites to do that?
They just need to apply for transfer of those permits, and we have to approve that by our current ordinance. They could do that in one letter for all of them and list the permits. They don't necessarily have to apply for 800 permits. They could come and say, for all of these permits, we'd like to transfer.
So AT&T doesn't own those permits in a sense? Well, I mean,
whoever the permittee is the owner of the permit.
Well, okay, so I can't sell my ownership, is what you're saying. That ownership has no transferability.
Not the way our current encroachment ordinance is written. Now, one of the things that I'm going to be bringing to your board once this is done is a rewrite of our encroachment ordinance, and we may look at trying to change that in that ordinance, but as it currently exists, there's no provision for that, and so since this is a chapter of that ordinance, we have to follow that portion of the ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, you'd think the transferability would automatically go.
You think you're driving the contract?
I'm also thinking if I don't, because we don't know, small XYZ bought somebody and they go, and then all of a sudden the permit comes up and it's gone because I thought we owned it, and I guess I'm just trying to, could it cause confusion?
And it's probably
so maybe
happening now.
Huh?
And it's probably happening.
It's probably happening right now, so I guess maybe we should need to, if it isn't done, we should need to look at it, because I would think that if I'm buying that business, I'm also buying their permits, I'm buying, same when I buy their buildings, their CUP, the ability to occupy that building, that business has been permitted for, I think I would have that same right, so.
Again, this is one of the things we will look at in rewriting the encroachment ordinance, and if we change it in that ordinance, which I suspect we might, then we would change this provision as well.
Okay.
But as it's currently
Yeah,
written,
I
we have
understand.
conflict in our
It
ordinance.
just gives me a little concern, but if we're looking to try to bring that up, it would be something worth.
But again, we don't expect that we're going to run them through a ringer for that. If they come in with a letter and say we need to reassign all these permits because we've sold, there's an administrative way we can do that relatively easily. We just have to go in physically in the system and change the owner of the permit.
Yeah, and it sounds like it doesn't have to be big. I'm just trying to think of a big old company doing that and saying, we're the only county that does that. The rest of the counties, you have ownership transfer, we don't even deal with it. And then whoops, we didn't do inventory, now we don't really own those ownership. It may just be an issue, that's all to me. So maybe it's something we could look at in some of these other ordinances you're looking at. I don't want to cause major problems for them and for us, saying, well, we didn't really mean that, and later on issue. So, okay. Let me just also make a real quick comment. I did see on this letter we did receive from Verizon's, on behalf of Verizon, I just wanted to say where it said, we appreciate the numerous hours devoted to the WTF ordinance by the Transportation Department staff, as well as members of the Board of Supervisors and their staffs to achieve a workable ordinance for the community. I just got to say, I appreciate you guys doing. I know under Mr. Power's leadership, part of this is we're not shoving things down people's throat. We're really trying to come together and work it. The experts on the outside, people on the inside, trying to find ways to make it work. Doesn't always get perfect, but maybe it's a little bit. But before it was kind of off here, now it's coming. I just want to appreciate everybody and Ms. Powers and your leadership to make sure that people do that. We've seen it with the farm ordinances. We've seen it with a lot. This is I think as Supervisor Bennett said earlier and some other stuff, this is a county that comes together trying to work this stuff out. And so I do appreciate the comments of Mr. Boyle and some of the ones said. So thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I hope that feasibility section will help Southern Gas. I think they were concerned about that, so that might help them too. So I think that's really important, Tom and Dave.
Yeah, two questions. Certainly on the surface, my instincts are, well, if you buy the property, you buy the permit. But I'd like to hear, why is it? What would be? There must have been a reason why that wasn't the case. So perhaps it's because you want to have a chance to review the company and make sure that they have the economic wherewithal to follow through on whatever you have to do, because it's right-of-way stuff. I mean, maybe we don't want just somebody who doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to dig the roads up, for example, and then stick us. I don't know, but so I'd like to hear that. You don't have to come up with that answer right now, but I'd like to hear what staff thinks the rationale was whenever they did the ordinance for why they didn't want it to transfer across, before I just sort of blindly say, I agree, they should transfer. If there's a reason, I'd want to hear that. The second thing is, I just want to ask County Council, listening to Southern California Edison, they talked about the potential conflict coming down the road, et cetera. I just want to know, from your analysis, hearing their concerns, potential conflicts they see, et cetera, your County Council's recommendation still is that we not exempt them, create the exemption that they're looking for. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's our recommendation. And I can actually answer your first question too. Simply a point of black letter law is that the nature of an encroachment permit is what's called a license in the law. And a license is a very limited property right. It's the right to use for a temporary period a piece of real estate. And when a license is granted to an individual, it's a personal license. It belongs to the person to whom the right has been granted. And automatically, as a matter of law, if that individual attempts to transfer the license, it vacates the license. And so in this case, as a matter of law, the county's consent to the transfer of the license, or the encroachment permit in this case, would be required. But again, we would no better be able to withhold consent than we would be able to withhold a permit in the first instance. This is a ministerial process, so provided that all the requirements are met.
If I could use an analogy here, so I have a license to operate a particular boat. I sell the boat. I don't really get to sell my license at the same time, right?
It's a similar, but since we're dealing with real estate.
It's not a great analogy, I have to admit, but it's a similar kind of thing. You're giving somebody a license to do something with your particular property based on your belief that they'll handle it properly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good. I know that's what you wanted to say, right?
Personal. Yeah.
I always rely on my lawyers.
He's a good lawyer, too.
Okay, well, I understand that. So I see, but, okay, so in a sense, we're not beholden. So then, my other comment then was, maybe we're the only county doing this. Most other counties probably have the same law. They have to do the same thing and the same rights, most likely, because it's the same kind of a permit.
I would suspect that they do,
Yeah,
just
so,
based
okay,
on
so
the
they're-
legal
So,
principle.
okay, then some of these companies know what they're doing. They have to go back and get their rights transferred. So
Thank
maybe
you.
it's not a big deal. Yeah, good. That was a good way to examine that, so. Okay. Linda?
A couple of
Yes.
questions, thank you. First, I just really appreciate working with the Resource Management Agency, the Planning Department, and coordinating where we can, since they both give permission to put up antennas. So that I appreciate, and also taking input from the SOMAS and Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council and Ranch Tropi Owner Association, and we learn a lot from the experiences that we had in those areas too, so I appreciate that. I like that we have some height control in this, and I also like the emphasis again at trying to encourage co-location where possible. There is one small thing where it suggests that we disguise the antennas to look like poles, but I know that we also encourage them to look like other things than poles, so that's further into the ordinance. I also really appreciate the fact that we are asking for the permittee to allow for us to get expert advice if we need it. And both, I guess that would apply to both radio frequency type of issues. Also, will it also look at the holes in the service areas? I know, for example, there was a case in my area within the city where they were looking at putting in a 50-foot pole, and during the Planning Commission meeting just basically said, but a 35-foot would work also. I won't tell you how the Planning Commission voted anyway, but I'm just wondering if we have that ability to have that expertise to determine, well, you really don't need as high a pole, or there really isn't the hole in the service area as you're indicating. Is that something that experts can also provide information on?
We don't have that expertise. If we felt we needed to do that, we certainly could hire an expert in that case.
And that might come out of, because we are now giving that notification and the ability to have input, and if there is those kind of questions, it might be something we can look into. And I appreciate also as I read the ordinance, it looks like it allows for us to get a radio frequency report. I'm not so sure, though, it is after it is put in place. After a permit is granted and you have the antenna there, is there some way to verify?
We can request a report whenever we want one, and I believe the ordinance asks for one at operation so that we show that it's operating as designed. And in fact, in our discussions with the wireless folks, they tell us that generally they operate at far less than what the specifications are, so but we can ask for that report.
That's good. I think that will help to give some neighborhoods comfort, and also appreciate the emphasis on the view shed and seeing that we do get some aesthetic treatment and not putting it in the medians in the areas where there aren't already poles overhead. So appreciate the great attention that was put into this. I just have one question regarding something that we thought was in a CUP in a different jurisdiction, which precluded them from like parking their trucks on the streets over the weekend while they're doing work, because that riles up the neighborhood. Is there something that we can encourage to see that we don't have equipment sitting out over the weekends and while there is still work to be done?
We have within our existing encroachment permit conditions that we provide them on where they have to park equipment and how far off the road it needs to be. So those are specific conditions on a given permit that we can provide.
Okay.
It wouldn't need to be separate in this ordinance.
Yeah, and I'm sure it depends on the area. If it's not in the middle of a residential street, it probably doesn't have that impact. And then also regarding the request with coming back, if they are replacing the exact same size pole, to me, I would encourage that behavior and not, if we can do that ministerially, that would be something I support. When you see that a lot of the, I think it was Southern California Edison was showing that a huge percentage of their poles were substandard in terms of wind and things like that. When we can get a replacement and it's not going to have a a visual effect. In other words, it's the same size. To me, I would encourage that. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels or why that's needed.
Well, in fact, in the ordinance, if they're replacing it in kind, it's not considered a new installation. And actually, we're not, what Mr. O'Boyle referred to is whether or not a new pole is considered a new installation, which requires more review, or not a new installation. And what we have in the ordinance is if they increase the diameter or the height of the pole, it's considered a new installation. But if it's the same size and it's a replacement, it's not considered a new installation.
That's great. Well, I just think you've done an excellent job, and thank you for taking the extra time. I know we were going to have this before us sooner, but I think as a result, we have a much better ordinance, so I definitely support it.
Supervisor Bennett?
You know, our staff, you're the roads department. You don't normally specialize in this, so I want to thank you and staff for the extra time that we asked you to put into this. I also want to thank Crown and AT&T for coming in and, you know, expressing that you're not 100% happy, but you can live with this. That's sort of how government works in terms of, and how all good things work in terms of people, organization, and stuff. So appreciate you taking the time to do that. It's good for us to hear that you felt like you were listened to. It's good for us to hear that today as we're getting ready to vote, and that you still have concerns, but you're willing to work with and stuff. So compliment your companies. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I too want to, that's a good point, but made it come together. I'm glad. It took a little bit longer, but it seems like it's worked as close as we could get it, and I appreciate everybody putting the hours in. Mike, do you have anything to say on this?
Someone said very well. Just really complex areas. Each element of this ordinance is deceptively complex on the impacts of it. And there's no substitute for just working through it issue by issue, slogging through it, and you did that with a good attitude. And so this is the result of it. And echo the comment about the companies as well. This is a partnership, and we need to be flexible going forward because it's all going to change pretty rapidly. So thank you.
And Anita Ballin and Tom Templeton, too.
And Mr. Chair, I want to thank Southern Gas too for working with us also. You know, I know that I think that one section is going to help us a lot, and Dave and Tom, and thank you for the good work. And your staff too, Dave.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're going to do in county council's office anymore, but you'll find something for them, right? All right, so anyway, that we have a motion and a second, and again, for some good work here done, and we can move on and get everybody out working.
And there has been positive feedback
Yeah.
also from the municipal advisory councils that they took their input and made a change.
Before you finish that, okay, so we closed the public hearing, and this is our first read of this. When you want to read this?
Yes, sir. An ordinance governing the issuance of encroachment permits for installation of wireless telecommunications facilities within the public right-of-way.
All right, this will come back for our second read, and great. All right, well, thank you again, everyone. Appreciate the time and effort put in.
Didn't you say 10 minutes?
No, sir, I was asked about 10.